Chapter 110. Chapter 110, Family Dinner, Sleeping, Can Replenish Energy Too. Lin Yi said, a little incredulous. Kid, you're overthinking it. Of course sleeping can replenish energy, but why do people sleep? Do they have nothing better to do? Isn't it to replenish energy? You're the same. You've trained in the art of dragon mastery, but you're still a human at heart, you haven't mutated. Jiao Yazi said as he looked at Lin Yi with a pitiful gaze. Don't overcomplicate things, it's actually very simple, even kids understand. Ugh. I see. Lin Yi's face reddened a little. Jiao Lao's words weren't unreasonable, but he was overthinking things. That's right. Jiao Lao nodded. Go to sleep, it looks like you haven't slept in a while. Poor kid, poor thing, Lin Yi fell into a deep slumber that night. It was the best sleep he'd had since he'd left the cave. So sleeping really did replenish energy. Lin Yi felt refreshed when he woke up, stretching his body before heading to the bathroom to wash up. He put on the new casual clothes he'd bought yesterday before leaving the room. There was no one in the living room, Meng Yao and Yushu probably still hadn't woken up. General Wei Wu stood guard at the staircase leading to the second floor, and Lin Yi was curious as to what a girl's room looked like, but he'd have to do it openly if he wanted to peek, right? Lin Yi pushed open the villa's door and walked into the villa's courtyard. The villa area was very quiet on weekends, and there weren't any cars coming and going. There was only the occasional passing car. Ah. Lin Yi hadn't been standing at the door for long when he saw Faubert's Bentley slowly drive over and stop in front of the villa. Mr. Lin, you're outside. Faubert nodded with a smile when he saw Lin Yi. Faubert, this early? Lin Yi looked at the time. Yao Yao and Shu haven't woken up yet, right? It's getting late, they should be tidying up. Mr. Lin, don't you want to change into something more formal? Faubert looked at Lin Yi's casual clothes and asked. Me? Make it more formal. What for? Lin Yi was stunned and looked at Faubert in confusion. Mr. Lin, don't you know? Every Sunday, Mr. Chu holds a family banquet. In the past, Miss Chu, Little Shu, and I attended together, but this time, Mr. Chu specifically told me that Mr. Lin must attend as well, Faubert explained. Family banquet. Lin Yi didn't expect Peng Zhan's family to have this custom, but since he was invited, Lin Yi naturally wouldn't reject it. Alright, but I don't have anything formal. I just bought this yesterday, and other than that, I only have my school uniform. Faubert couldn't help but laugh. That's fine, it's a family banquet anyways. Mr. Lin, please get in the car first, I'll call Miss Chu and the others. Oh. Okay, Lin Yi nodded and opened the door to the front passenger seat. Watching Faubert enter the villa, Lin Yi narrowed his eyes. Truth be told, this mission was the most relaxing one for Lin Yi, and also the most baffling one. Lin Yi was tricked by his old man into accepting a mission that would give him a lifetime's worth of commission. But even now, Lin Yi still didn't know what this mission was. Playing with the miss all day long. Being the Mrs. Bodyguard, babysitter, study partner, and shield. Although it was a bit difficult, but there was no need for an S-ranked assassin and secret agent like him to do this, was there? Besides, Lin Yi wasn't an idiot. He wouldn't think that doing something like this would give him a lifetime's worth of commission. What kind of joke was this, unless Peng Zhan was out of his mind? But now, it seemed that Peng Zhan was very smart, and his brain wasn't out of his wits. This was what Lin Yi was confused about. If it wasn't for his old man's insistence and guarantee, Lin Yi would have suspected that there was some kind of conspiracy going on. But, Lin Yi also knew that although his old man was a bit frivolous, he would never harm him. This was also the main reason why Lin Yi could stay here peacefully. Even if the miss was a beauty, Shu was very likable, and there was also an interesting commoner beauty. Lin Yi didn't have the time to play around here. It'd be terrible if he lost his life here. Meng Yao and Yushu came out not long after Li Fu went in, dressed differently from yesterday. Compared to yesterday's youthful and dazzling appearance, they were much more ladylike today, giving off the vibe of socialites. Falbert helped Meng Yao and Yushu open the car door and waited for them to get in before going back to the driver's seat. Meng Yao was surprised to see Lin Yi in the front passenger seat. She didn't think that her father would invite Lin Yi to the family dinner today. Meng Yao was actually a very smart girl, but she was often pissed off by Lin Yi. Since Lin Yi was sitting here, it must be her father's idea. There was no way that Falbert would invite Lin Yi on his own. Although this Lin Yi wasn't as annoying as before, and he was suitable to be her follower, was her father really going to let a man like him stay in her house for a long time? Falbert started the car, and it slowly drove out of the villa area towards the city center. Mr. Chu's family banquets are all held at Pengzhan International Hotel in the city center. It's also one of Mr. Chu's company's properties. It was Lin Yi's first time attending a family banquet, so Falbert explained. Who's coming later? Are there any rules? Lin Yi was used to being wild, but this was his employer's family banquet. Lin Yi couldn't be too rude. In the past, other than me, Miss Chu, and Shu, it was Mr. Chu. Falbert said. As for rules, there aren't any. Family banquets are just for relaxation. There aren't too many rules. Don't eat so much. Just make a fool of yourself. Meng Yao teased, remembering Lin Yi's appetite. Ha! Falbert, naturally, knew that there was a small gap between Meng Yao and Lin Yi. He smiled. Mr. Chu doesn't like to waste things. It'd be great if Mr. Lin could eat everything. Falbert. Meng Yao was a little unhappy at Falbert's words. She started to act coquettishly. Why are you going against me? Meng Yao was just saying it casually. She knew what kind of person her father was. Falbert was right. She was just making fun of Lin Yi. She didn't think too much about it. Now that Falbert saw through her, she felt a little embarrassed. Miss Chu, this old man can't talk about Mr. Chu's habits behind his back. I can only tell the truth. Falbert smiled. Chapter 111. Chapter 111, Something Feels Wrong. Falbert's car drove into Pengzhan Hotel's underground parking lot without any obstructions, and the group went through a special passageway to the top floor of the hotel. The place wasn't open to the public, and there weren't any signs of people coming and going. Falbert brought Lin Yi and the others to a private room and knocked on the door. In actuality, Meng Yao and Yushu had been here many times already, and they couldn't be more familiar with the place. Come in. Pengzhan's voice came from the room. Falbert pushed the door open, but didn't go in. He turned to Meng Yao instead. Miss Chu, Shu, Mr. Lin, please come in. Meng Yao and Yushu were evidently used to it by now. Falbert's image of an old butler was deeply ingrained in them. Lin Yi, on the other hand, was a little embarrassed. Falbert, you too, Mr. Lin, you're a guest. Falbert said firmly. Lin Yi had no choice but to enter the room. Lin Yi greeted Pengzhan with a smile. Hello, Uncle Chu. Have a seat, Yi. Ha, make yourself at home, it's just a family banquet. Pengzhan said with a smile as he greeted Lin Yi. You'll get used to it later, it's a fixed time every week, unless I'm away on a business trip. Ha! Lin Yi could only smile bitterly in response. What was wrong with him participating in someone else's family banquet? Falbert was Pengzhan's confidant, and Yushu was Meng Yao's best friend. House Chen and House Chu were old friends, so it was only natural that she be attending the banquets. Even Meng Yao, who was at the side, was shocked. What kind of drug did Lin Yi feed her father to make him participate in the family banquets, and even tell him to get used to it? Didn't that mean that Lin Yi would have a part in the family banquets every week? Meng Yao had accepted Lin Yi's existence in her heart, but she still couldn't take it lying down. Lin Yi was just too infuriating, acting all lazy and cocky. So many people wanted to be her shield, but they didn't even have the chance to do so. Not only was he acting all sloppy, he was even pissing her off. What Meng Yao didn't know was that this competitive mentality of hers would become something she would regret in the future. Heh, shield bro, you're a part of our family now. Take care of me. Yushu greeted Lin Yi obediently. Take care of you. Lin Yi rubbed his nose. Who's taking care of who? You're always using a chicken feather as a token of authority, threatening me with a piece of toilet paper. Yao Yao, what do you think? Are you satisfied with Lin Yi now? Pingzhan smiled as he looked at his daughter. So what if I'm satisfied or not? Can you just fire him if I'm not satisfied? Meng Yao said, feeling wronged. I see that Shu and him get along quite well. What's wrong? Are you unhappy? Pingzhan asked. Nope. Meng Yao shook her head. She was actually feeling quite conflicted. The scene of Lin Yi standing up for her that day kept flashing in her mind, but Lin Yi's sloppy attitude, not taking her seriously, pissed Meng Yao off. It was as if he was treating Shu better than he was treating her, and that was what Meng Yao hated the most. Why? Was she that bad? If it weren't for Pin Liang, Meng Yao would have thought that she'd gotten uglier recently. If that's the case, then you guys get along well. You're all the same age, and I'll be more at ease if you have a companion. Pingzhan nodded in satisfaction at his daughter's words. Meng Yao sighed. This was like inviting a wolf into the house. She was a pure and innocent girl, living under the same roof with a stinky man. Of course, that wasn't the most irritating thing. The most irritating thing was that Lin Yi didn't seem to have any interest in her at all. Soon, dishes were served one after another. It could be seen that the chefs here were very attentive in preparing the family banquet. The dishes were not luxurious and were all very common home-cooked dishes. However, whether it was the color or the matching, they were all very exquisite. With Pingzhan's status, he wasn't interested in exotic delicacies anymore. Healthy food was what he needed. Since Pingzhan had asked Lin Yi to make himself at home, Lin Yi didn't hold back. Who wouldn't want to eat with their stomachs? There wasn't much to pretend about, anyway, he was Pingzhan's employer and employee, after all. There was no need for formalities. And so, under Meng Yao's disdainful and Yushu's surprised gazes, Lin Yi dug in. Meng Yao felt a chill run down her spine. Bro, can you stop embarrassing me? You're my follower after all. She glanced at Yushu discreetly, and sighed in relief when she saw that Yushu didn't look too surprised. He was just a follower. Why did she care so much about him? What did eating have to do with her? Meng Yao comforted herself. Lin Yi ate the most during the meal, and Meng Yao couldn't take it anymore. Lin Yi, are you going to pack up later? Ugh. That's what I'm thinking. Lin Yi nodded. Meng Yao was speechless, and Yushu snickered. Pingzhan, on the other hand, was still smiling at Lin Yi. Ever since the bank incident, Pingzhan's impression of Lin Yi couldn't get any better. He didn't pay much attention to the old man's nagging, but it seemed that his father had a good eye for people. Yao Yao, you, Shu, and Faubert can go downstairs first. I'll pack up with Yi. Pingzhan got up to look for a lunchbox, and Meng Yao was a little stunned. Her father wasn't some extravagant person, but he'd never packed a bag before, right? Yushu, on the other hand, looked at Pingzhan thoughtfully, a strange light flashing through her eyes. She returned to normal after a moment, and pulled Meng Yao's hand. Yao Yao, let's go first, oh. Meng Yao was very curious about her father's actions, but it wasn't her place to ask. She felt that her father's attitude towards Lin Yi seemed to be even better than his own. What? He's just a hired follower. Faubert walked in front to get the car, and Yushu and Meng Yao walked behind him. Yushu pulled on Meng Yao's hand. What's wrong, Shu? Meng Yao looked at Yushu, who was walking very slowly, curiously. Yao Yao. I have a feeling. Yushu hesitated, but decided to say what she was thinking. As for that moment of confusion, she buried it deep in her heart. Feeling? What feeling? Meng Yao looked at Yushu, not understanding what she was talking about. Yao Yao, don't you feel that Uncle Chu has something going on with Lin Yi? Yushu said in a low voice. Chapter 112. Bastard child, Dad seems to care more about him than he does about me. And why's his attitude so nice? Meng Yao frowned. Yeah, especially when Uncle Chu told you to get along well with Lin Yi, since you guys are the same age. Don't you think that's a little ambiguous? Yushu analyzed. Would Lin Yi have to say that if he's just a follower Uncle Chu hired? Just look at how strict Uncle Chu has been with your male classmates all these years. There's no way Uncle Chu would let a guy live with us for no reason at all. You're right. Meng Yao nodded in agreement. It was true, she'd had a good upbringing since she was young. She was strictly told that she wasn't allowed to date before she was 18, and that she wasn't allowed to go out with boys. She was 18 now, but wasn't this change in attitude a little too much? Meng Yao couldn't believe that her father would suddenly become so open-minded, letting a man into their house. There had to be something fishy going on. Meng Yao wouldn't have thought much of it if Yushu hadn't pointed it out. After all, she'd thought that the reason why Lin Yi was here was because of Lin Yi's magic potion. But thinking about it, wasn't her father a smart man? Pingzhan Industries was such a big company, how could they be tricked by a country bumpkin like Lin Yi? It didn't seem possible. That meant that Lin Yi coming here was something her father approved of from the bottom of his heart. What was the reason for her father to make such a decision? Plus, Faubert seems to be very respectful towards Shield Bro as well. Yushu hit the point. It didn't matter if Pingzhan admired Lin Yi or not, but the fact was that Pingzhan admired a lot of people. Many of the young talents in the company had been recruited by him, and all of them treated Faubert with utmost respect. After all, Faubert was an old friend of Pingzhan, and even the vice-chairman of the company had to call him Li Bro. Faubert's attitude towards Lin Yi, on the other hand, was different from how he treated the other employees. It was more like how he treated Yushu and Meng Yao, yeah. Meng Yao's brows furrowed even tighter. She was starting to suspect Lin Yi's identity and her father's intentions for sending him to her. Ao Yao, in short, whether it's your dad or Faubert, their attitude towards Shield Bro is way too ambiguous. It's like they're not treating someone they hired. They're treating him like family. Yushu voiced out her thoughts. It might scare Meng Yao, but she had to say it as Meng Yao's best friend. After listening to Yushu's analysis, Meng Yao suddenly thought of a terrifying possibility. It was a possibility that scared even Meng Yao herself. Shu. Do you think Lin Yi might be Daddy's illegitimate child? Meng Yao's eyes were wide open as she looked at Yushu, panicking. Why else would Daddy like him so much? Wah. Yushu was stunned as well. She didn't think that Meng Yao would come up with such a miraculous reason. Uncle Chu's illegitimate child. Yushu felt a chill run down her spine. But that was basically impossible. The two of them didn't look alike at all. Meng Yao was way too strong for her to come up with something like that. What's wrong, Shu? Meng Yao asked as she looked at Yushu standing there, stunned. Did I say something wrong? Yao Yao, your imagination's too strong. Shield bros around our age, right? If he's an illegitimate child, it'd be after Uncle Chu met your mom, but... Is it even possible then? Is there even a chance? Yushu shook her head, speechless. Ugh. Maybe I'm wrong then. But what else could it be other than that? Meng Yao gave up on the idea as well, it was too unreliable. Yao Yao, I think Uncle Chu's looking for a son-in-law. He's treating Shield Bro like a son-in-law. Yushu said with a mischievous smile. She didn't know why, but Yushu didn't feel comfortable saying those words. Looking for a son-in-law. Ming Yao's mouth was wide open as she looked at Yushu. Shoo. Are you serious? I don't know if it's real or not, it's just a guess. Yushu shrugged. It just feels like it, but it might not be. How is that possible? I'm only 18. Impossible, absolutely impossible. Mingyao's face was red as she shook her head. What do you think, Shu? I think you and Shield Bro are a good match. Yushu smiled. You know how to drive, cook, and even know kung fu, that's not bad, I don't want to. Mingyao rejected subconsciously, but in her heart, that strange feeling was surging restlessly. Daddy really wants him to be my boyfriend. Is he not just pretending to be a shield? If that's the case, he can protect me. The scene in the bank had given Meng Yao a deep sense of security and dependence on Lin Yi. But the mispride and arrogance made Lin Yi even more despicable. If that's the case, why would he still flirt with other girls? How could her daddy like someone like that? She and Shu must have misunderstood, or maybe her father had other intentions. Meng Yao and Yushu made their way to the underground parking lot, and got into Li Fu's Bentley. Meng Yao sighed softly. Shu, what do you think about our guesses? How likely are they? It could be 0%, it could be 50%, it could even be 100%. Yushu had already returned to normal as she giggled, but I feel like it depends on which one you want it to be, Yao Yao. Me? What do I hope for? He likes Ling Shan, and that pretty girl at the business district yesterday. What does that have to do with me? Mingyao's tone was a little sour, even though she was making fun of Lin Yi. Ha! Yushu smiled, sighing inwardly. Could it be that Yao Yao had feelings for him too? Faubert got in after checking the car, and Meng Yao and Yushu stopped talking as well. Mingyao's expression flickered between happiness and annoyance, but no one knew what she was thinking. Chapter 113. Killing intent. During this period of time, many things had happened. Pingzhan had already threatened the company's board of directors a couple of times, telling them not to act rashly. But if someone really wanted to go against Pingzhan, he wouldn't be able to control them. As a result, Faubert had to be extremely careful, be it in the company or outside. The car was parked in the company's parking lot, but Faubert still made sure to check the car's exterior carefully before he drove off. It wouldn't be so bad as to plant a bomb, but destroying the brakes or puncturing the tires was a possibility. Faubert had to be on guard. Pingzhan and Lin Yi walked at the back of the group, Lin Yi having a pretty good idea of Pingzhan's intentions. Pingzhan wouldn't be this enthusiastic about packing up, so there had to be something he wanted to say to Meng Yao and Yushu first. What's the matter, Uncle Chu? Lin Yi asked as he put the food on the table into boxes. I can't hide anything from you. Pingzhan picked up a lunchbox as well. I've already done my own investigation on the matter in the company, and I've confirmed the suspect, but this involves the reputation and benefits of the previous generation. I can't make a move before I have concrete evidence. Pingzhan said as he picked up a lunchbox. Uncle Chu, you want me to go collect evidence? Lin Yi asked. That's not necessary. Just stay by Yao Yao's side, and don't let anything happen to her. I can handle the company stuff for now. Ping-Zhan said with a shake of his head. That's fine. Just let me know when you need me. Lin Yi said inwardly. Did he even need evidence? Tell me who you suspect, and I'll just kill them for you. What's the point of looking for evidence? But Ping-Zhan was the employer, and Lin Yi had to follow his instructions. Do you have enough money? Spending time with Yao Yao should be quite expensive, right? I heard you guys went shopping yesterday. Ping-Zhan said, changing the topic. Money. Not really. Lin Yi shook his head, a bitter smile on his face as he pointed at his clothes. Miss Chu paid for this set of casual clothes. I haven't spent much yet. Shopping. Men have to spend to show their manliness. Ping-Zhan said with a smile. How about this, I'll get Li Fu to get you a credit card later. You can just swipe it. All right. Lin Yi smiled and shrugged. He didn't reject the offer anymore. Why wouldn't he accept money that was given to him? He didn't know why Ping-Zhan was doing this, but he wasn't in the habit of rejecting money from his employer. The two came out of the elevator and went to the underground parking lot. They walked in the direction of Li Fu's car, and Lin Yi's Jade reacted after a few steps. What's wrong? Ping-Zhan noticed that Lin Yi wasn't moving anymore. What's wrong? Ping-Zhan asked, puzzled as Lin Yi stopped walking. Ping-Zhan paused. Killing intent. Ping-Zhan paused. Killing intent. Ping-Zhan, on the other hand, hadn't sensed it, but he knew that killing intent was a mysterious thing. It wasn't surprising that Lin Yi could sense something that normal people couldn't. Boom! A huge chandelier fell from the sky, shattering into pieces where they were standing. Boom! A huge chandelier fell from the sky and landed where the two of them were standing before, shattering into pieces. Ping-Zhan's face paled as he looked at the broken pieces of the chandelier. His eyes were filled with rage. The chandelier was huge. If it wasn't for Lin Yi's quick reflexes, they would have been smashed by the chandelier. The chandelier was made of glass. It wouldn't kill them if it fell on their heads, but it would definitely hurt them. These people dared to do this. Ping-Zhan's face was filled with anger. They were too daring. Ping-Zhan knew that this was revenge for what he did during the board meeting on Friday. It seemed like these people had reached the point where they could do whatever they wanted. Not only did they dare to kidnap Meng Yao, they even dared to do something like this. Li Fu was in the car, and naturally, Meng Yao and Yushu saw it as well. The two stared blankly at the scene, and after a while, Meng Yao and Yushu finally cried out. What happened? It was too scary. Li Fu, on the other hand, was calmer. He was already running over to Ping-Zhan. Mr. Chu, are you all right? Call the security guards to check what's going on. Close the underground parking lot and don't let anyone leave. Ping-Zhan ordered. It's fine. Lin Yi said as he looked at the cut on the chandelier. He stood up and said, someone used a sharp weapon to cut the cord of the chandelier. Oh? Ping-Zhan paused and looked in the direction Lin Yi was pointing. There was indeed a neat cut on the wires of the chandelier. Ping-Zhan's face darkened. But, how did they calculate the time? The chandelier fell when we passed by. How? I'm guessing that the chandelier was turned off when we passed by. The cut cord wasn't enough to keep the chandelier working, so the chandelier fell. Lin Yi said. Of course, it's just a guess. Maybe they have other ways. Ping-Zhan wasn't stupid. He knew that Lin Yi's hypothesis was very likely. If that was the case, then there was no need to investigate. Since the enemy had done it so secretively, he wouldn't be able to find anything even if he went to investigate now. The evidence must have been destroyed. Let's go. Ping-Zhan took a deep breath and suppressed his anger. He walked to the car with Faubert. You sit in the back with Yao Yao and the others. I'll sit in the front passenger seat. Pingzhan said to Lin Yi. Okay. Lin Yi nodded. He was about to open the back door when he saw Meng Yao in the back seat. Lin Yi hesitated and turned to Yushu's side. He opened the door and got in. Compared to Meng Yao, Lin Yi and Yushu had a better relationship. The Bentley was spacious, and it wasn't cramped even with 3 people in the back. Chapter 114. Worrying about personal gains and losses. Chapter 114. Worrying about personal gains. Her dad was looking for a son-in-law. And Lin Yi did look quite handsome now. Plus, for a girl who'd grown up in a rich house like hers, it didn't matter if the guy was young or rich anymore. She'd rather find a man who'd focus on her, someone who'd protect her, someone who'd protect her. Evidently, Lin Yi was capable of protecting her. She didn't have anything to do with him right now, and he was just someone her dad hired. If he was willing to stand in front of her when she was in danger, wouldn't he be even more careful and protective of her if he were to become her boyfriend? Meng Yao blushed even redder at the thought. She'd never been in a relationship before, and her heart was starting to stir. She didn't think much of it before, but Yushu's words made her start to think about it. But the worst part about Lin Yi seemed to be that he was a playboy. Or was it because she wasn't attracted to him at all? Why was he and Ling Shan together when they'd just met? And why was that tall girl he'd seen yesterday? Could it be? Was it because she was too immature? Meng Yao felt a little sad at the thought. She looked at Yushu beside her. The girl was a lot more voluptuous than she was. No wonder Lin Yi treated her better than he did her. That pervert must have fallen for Shu's bigger boobs, Meng Yao thought hatefully. If this guy was going to sit next to her, she'd have to teach him a lesson. It'd be best if she pretended not to step on him or push him when Li Fu was braking. She'd let him know the consequences of underestimating her, but Lin Yi didn't open the door for her. He went to Yushu's side, opened the door, and got in. Meng Yao's face didn't look too good at all. What the hell was the meaning of this? My dad hired you to be my shield. You should be sitting next to me. What's wrong with you sitting next to Shu? Meng Yao frowned. She wanted to yell, Lin Yi, come sit here, but her dad and Faubert were sitting in front of her. She hesitated, but didn't do it in the end. Her face was a little unhappy though. Pingzhan pulled out his phone and dialed a number, his face dark. Is this Director Chin? I'm Pingzhan. Hello, Mr. Chu. Chief Chen of the Songshan police station picked up the phone, his tone much better after hearing that it was Pingzhan. Pingzhan wasn't just the biggest entrepreneur in the city, he also held a position in the provincial government, and most importantly, he was friends with the military's House Qin. As a distant relative of the Chens, Chief Qin naturally understood the implications. Bureau Chief Qin, I would like to ask, how is the bank robbery going? Did you catch the suspect who kidnapped my children? Pingzhan was indeed very angry. He didn't even hide his daughter and Yushu's back as he dialed the number. The culprit was simply too arrogant, trying to kidnap his daughter just a few days ago, and now he was doing it again. There's no news yet. Chief Chen said helplessly. The suspect is very cunning, the license plate is fake, and we don't have any valuable leads yet. All right then, I'll have to trouble Chief Chen to let me know if there's any news. Pingzhan was still very polite to Chief Chen, since he was Yushu's relative. He just didn't know if Yushu would recognize him. All right, I'll get someone to hurry up. Director Chen hung up the call and called Ling Shan's office. Song. I'm Chen Dafei, come to my office for a bit. All right. Ling Shan could tell that Chief Chen wasn't in a good mood. She quickly put down what she was doing and gave her subordinate some instructions before heading to the chief's office. She knocked on the door, and only entered when the chief said, "Come in." Chief, you're looking for me. Song, you're here. Dafei pushed his glasses up and put down the documents in his hands. Sit, tell me about the bank robbery case. Is there any progress? Chief, we've set up a 313 task force, and we've sent people to investigate the case, but there's no news yet. Ling Shan reported carefully. She was the one in charge of this case, and Huaijuan had recently been transferred to a neighboring city to handle a case. He'd probably be promoted to vice chief after the case was over, and so the criminal police had fallen on Ling Shan's shoulders. But, without Huaijuan's protection, Ling Shan realized just how much pressure it was to be the leader of a task force. Huaijuan had always been the one making the decisions, and she'd never thought about the pressure from all sides. Now that she was the one leading the team, Ling Shan realized how difficult it was. But, no matter how difficult it was, she had to grit her teeth and get through it. There were no weaklings in House Song, and she'd be looked down upon if she gave up just like that. Hurry up, I don't need to say much about the importance of this case. It involves Pingzhan's daughter, and we have to solve it as soon as possible. We have to arrest the suspect. Chen Dafei said. Here, give me a time frame. How long do you need to solve this case? Ling Shan hesitated. Huaijuan had always been the one giving the orders in the director's office, but now she was the one doing it. Ling Shan wasn't confident, but the heavy responsibility was on her shoulders. Chief, I promise that I'll arrest the suspect in half a month. No, 10 days. Ling Shan saw Chen Dafei's eyebrow twitch when she said half a month, and quickly changed it to 10 days. Okay, that settles it then. 10 days, I'll wait for your good news. Chen Dafei nodded, satisfied. Ling Shan went back to her office, her brows furrowed as she tried to think of what Huaijuan would have done if he'd been in her shoes. But after a long time, she rubbed her temples helplessly. She didn't have a single clue. Every case was different, and there were different ways to solve it. Ling Shan was in the middle of her dilemma when the phone on her desk rang. She quickly picked it up. Hello, criminal police, Ling Shan. Chapter 115. No flirting. Alright, I'll go right now. Ling Shan's heart was set. Finding the leader of the suspects was supposed to be something to be happy about, but Ling Shan couldn't bring herself to be happy at all. Because what they found was not a living person, but a corpse. This meant that there was more to the case than met the eye. This Baldy might have been silenced. If that happened, the case would become even more complicated, and finding the real culprit would be too difficult. But, as much as it was a headache, Ling Shan still rushed to the scene with her men. Yao sis, what's wrong? Yushu noticed that Meng Yao wasn't in a good mood, too. She thought that Meng Yao had become more obedient because of Uncle Chu, but Yushu realized that wasn't the case after a while. It's nothing. Meng Yao shook her head. She was a little annoyed at Lin Yi's lustful behavior, but she couldn't be jealous of her best friend, could she? Oh, I think yesterday's mushrooms are better than today's. What do you think? Yushu nodded. Meng Yao was speechless, but Yushu's words amused her. Shu, you're just living on the streets. Your husband's gonna have to save a lot of money when you get married, hee. If I get married, won't you get married too? Plus, it's saving money for you. Yushu said with a smile as she looked at Meng Yao. Give me, Meng Yao's face reddened abruptly as she realized what Yushu was talking about. She couldn't help but hit Yushu. That was when we were kids, why are you still talking about it? We did pinky promise when we were young. Yushu's face reddened as she spoke. She glanced at Lin Yi from the corner of her eyes. Was Uncle Chu really planning to make Lin Yi his son-in-law? I'm not talking to you anymore. Meng Yao said awkwardly as she turned her head away, what Yushu was talking about when they were young was a little secret between the two of them. They'd never told anyone about it, but they'd still joke about it when they grew up. 6 or 7 years ago, when they were in junior high school, the two of them watched a soap opera series. It was about a pair of best friends who had a very good relationship since they were young. In order to be together every day, they married the same man, and so, Yushu stupidly said, "Yao Yao, if you're getting married, I'll marry you too. That way, we won't be separated." Meng Yao nodded in agreement upon hearing that it was a good thing, and so the two pinched their pinky promise for 100 years. It was only as they grew older that they realized how ridiculous it was, but they still joked about it. Yushu, on the other hand, didn't want to call Meng Yao Big Sis anymore after she grew up. They were classmates, after all, and calling Meng Yao Big Sis felt a little childish. Meng Yao, however, used this to threaten Yushu. She'd be the main wife after she got married, and Yushu would be the second wife, so of course she'd have to call her Big Sis. If she didn't, she'd tell everyone about it. Helpless, Yushu could only go back to calling Meng Yao Big Sis. She'd been calling Meng Yao Big Sis for so many years, but it was getting easier as well. She was a few months younger than Meng Yao's birthday anyway, so calling her Big Sis wasn't a big deal. Of course, this was something only Meng Yao and Yushu were involved in. No one else knew about it. Lin Yi was a little confused as he listened to the two girls talking about obscure stuff. He shook his head, not bothering to ask. Lin Yi knew that there'd be no reply even if he did. Lin Yi sat on the side with his eyes closed. It looked like he was resting, but he was actually doing something else. "Jiao Lao, the Jade's warning earlier, you." Lin Yi didn't know if the Jade's warning had anything to do with Jiao Lao. Lin Yi hadn't thought to ask about it when they were in the Jade space. "Warning." Jiao Yazi blinked. "What warning?" "I didn't feel anything." "You didn't feel anything?" Lin Yi blinked. "Just now, the moment the chandelier was about to fall, I felt the Jade sending me a signal of danger. It's the same signal that warns me every time I'm in danger. To be honest, I didn't feel anything." Jiao Yazi said after some thought. Nothing special had happened before, then. Is this the Jade's own power? Lin Yi knew that Jiao Lao wouldn't lie. If he said he didn't feel anything, then that meant he didn't feel anything. "It's possible, I told you, this Jade was left behind by my Grandmaster. I don't know what other powers it has, so you'll have to find out for yourself. Or you can open the stone door to the cave, and you'll find something new." Jiao Yazi explained. "All right." Lin Yi said helplessly. It seemed like Jiao Lao didn't know about the Jade speciality. The training space might just be one of its functions. The car stopped in front of the villa, and Lin Yi, Meng Yao, and Yushu left after dropping them off. Evidently, Pingzhan still had to go back to deal with the chandelier. Lin Yi. Meng Yao turned to look at Lin Yi all of a sudden. "HM." Lin Yi looked at the miss, confused. "You're not allowed to flirt outside while you're at work." Meng Yao mustered up her courage. She'd been thinking about this on the car the whole time, and now that she'd gotten out of the car, she decided to tell him everything in one go. "HM. I didn't." Lin Yi paused. Was the miss unhappy that he was flirting with girls during work? "If you do, then change." Meng Yao humphed. Naturally, she didn't want to talk about Ling Shan and that tall girl. "Oh. Okay." Lin Yi nodded. "Can I do that when I'm not working? My daddy hired you with a high price to be my shield 24 hours a day. There's no time when you're not working." With that, Meng Yao turned around and left with Yushu. Ugh. Fuck. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. Even the slave masters in the old days wouldn't do that, would they? Do they think I'm a slave? That girl. Yao Yao, you. You were so cool when you flipped out. Yushu looked at Meng Yao excitedly. He won't know his place if I don't teach him a lesson. Don't think that just because daddy likes him, he can do whatever he wants. Messing around with girls, lying to Pin Liang. Meng Yao didn't know what she was trying to explain. Chapter 116. Ling Shan, troubled, ahem. Ha! Meng Yao almost fell to the ground. Boyfriend. Living together. Was this Shu trying to piss her off? Meng Yao, however, had no choice but to change the topic with a straight face. Shu, you're a girl, what the fart, peeing, that's so uncivilized. Don't talk about it anymore. Oh, okay, I'll stop. Yushu nodded. That's good. Meng Yao breathed out in relief. Yao Yao, if you're fine with it, I'll tell Liangzi about you and Shield Bro tomorrow. Yushu continued. Meng Yao wanted to punch Yushu. Didn't you say you weren't going to talk about it? Ugh. Meng Yao understood that Yushu wasn't going to talk about it. She just didn't want to talk about those uncivilized things anymore. She still had to talk about it. Shu, it's not the right time yet. Lin Yi just transferred here, and we've already shown that we're not familiar with him. If we tell him now that wouldn't that be too fake? Everything has to be done step by step. We'll talk about it after a while, and it won't be so sudden anymore. Meng Yao said. Oh, I'll listen to you then, Yao Yao. Yushu nodded. I don't really care, anyway, you're the main wife, you pick your man, I'm just giving you a reference, Shu. Meng Yao wanted to punch the girl to death. Why do you keep bringing that up? You're not an idiot, you're not going to marry me if I do. That's hard to say. Yushu hugged Meng Yao. If I don't want to be separated from you, then we'll be together, you. I really don't know what to say. Meng Yao shook her head, speechless. The two walked up the stairs hand in hand, and Meng Yao turned to Wei Wu. General Wei Wu, you did well. Keep guarding us, and don't let that man come up. Woof, woof. Wei Wu felt wronged. How could he stop him if he wanted to go up? Ling Shan was quite troubled. Lu Jian was dead, and all the clues were gone. Only Lu Jian's bald head was more obvious, and the others were much more ordinary than Lu Jian. As for Lu Jian, according to the forensic report, he had died from a single gunshot. The other male corpse was also one of the bank robbers. He had died from a single gunshot as well. Apart from these two corpses, there were no other corpses. In other words, only two of the kidnappers were dead, and the others might still be alive. This was good news. If all of them were dead, it'd be even more of a headache for Ling Shan, but only two of them were dead. This meant that there was an internal conflict within the group, or they were killed after the deed was done. Through the internet search, the other male corpse's identity was confirmed. Ma Lu, male, 29 years old, unemployed young man from Electric Ox Village in Songshan's Cargo Rack County. He had a bad reputation in the village, and was considered a loafer. He left the village early last year, and his whereabouts were unknown. Evidently, Ling Shan didn't know Lu Jian until after Ma Lu left Electric Ox Village, so this clue wasn't very meaningful. After some hesitation, Ling Shan decided to give Huaijuan a call and ask for advice. She really didn't have a clue what to do. She'd already made the order, and the director wouldn't fire her if she couldn't solve the case in 10 days, but it'd be very embarrassing for her. Not only would she be embarrassed, but her father wouldn't be able to raise his head in front of the other uncles. Young bro, it's me. Ling Shan was a little uneasy. After all, calling Huaijuan would make her seem useless. She'd been learning from Huaijuan for so long without any progress, and it was quite embarrassing. In the past, Huaijuan was always the commander, and she was the vanguard. With her experience as a special ops instructor, she'd be able to beat the crap out of the criminals, no matter how cruel they were. As a result, dangerous capture missions were Lingshan's forte, and this was something the police department acknowledged. A female captain wouldn't be able to win over people easily otherwise. "What's up, Song?" Huaijuan had a meeting at the provincial office in the afternoon, and had nothing to do in the morning. He was planning on going to the doctor for a checkup. He'd had a relapse a couple of days ago, and while it was all because of Lin Yi, his body had been deteriorating day by day, and Huaijuan could still sense it. "Captain Yang. There's still no leads on the 313 bank robbery case. 2 suspects are dead, and we don't know if the others are alive or dead," Lingshan said carefully. "Ha." Huaijuan, naturally, understood Lingshan's predicament. She wasn't a criminal investigator, after all, and hadn't gone through any systematic training. "I know that already, so I'll tell you what I think. I think that the chances of them being silenced are higher. There's no way that only 2 people would die in a group, and the rest would be fine." Huaijuan, naturally, understood Lingshan's predicament. Then, what if they were killed by someone else? Only the 2 of them aren't on the same side. Lingshan asked humbly. "Is there a need for that? If they were on the same side, why would they bring 2 people who weren't on the same side with them? Isn't that just asking for trouble? Either they're reliable, or they're not," Huaijuan said with a smile. "So, I think there's a higher chance of internal strife, and it's most likely that they didn't split the loot evenly, so LVJN and Ma Lu were killed by their accomplices." "Yeah, that's right. That should be it." Lingshan nodded in agreement. "If that's the case, then we'll just have to increase our search efforts. They've got so much money with them, and unless they don't want it anymore, they won't be able to move too quickly. We have people on the main roads, and the chances of them leaving Songshan is very low. Let's search the area around the corpses, we might be able to find something," Huaijuan said. "Yeah, got it," Lingshan said, feeling as if she'd been enlightened. "Haha, Song, I heard that you're friends with Lin Yi." Huaijuan sighed, but decided to ask anyway. The police department was already talking about Lingshan's heroism. Serving her boyfriend in the hospital. Huaijuan didn't really believe that Lin Yi and Lingshan could be together. Lin Yi wasn't the type of person to go around flirting, and Lingshan herself hadn't had any scandals in her time in the police department. Even a man as outstanding as Qin Yutian was rejected. Chapter 117. The Master of Traditional Chinese Medicine, Ah. Lingshan blinked, her face darkening immediately. She hadn't expected the captain she admired to be this gossipy. In her impression, Huaijuan was a strict and serious person, and yet he was asking a question like this. It wasn't that Lingshan hadn't heard of the rumors in the police station, but she had no way to explain them. Things like this would only make things worse the more she tried to explain. Anyone with eyes would misunderstand what had happened in the hospital, and so there was nothing she could do about it. She could only let them say whatever they wanted, and hope that things would calm down after a while. She really didn't know how to explain it now that Huaijuan had asked. "Captain. I didn't, haha, the police force doesn't allow people to date, that's your thing," Huaijuan said with a smile, assuming that Lingshan was shy. He didn't say anything else after seeing her hesitation. It wasn't his place to comment on Lin Yi's stuff, after all. He'd only gotten worked up for Ning, but Lin Yi was their team's god. He would always be their captain. Captain Yang. Lingshan didn't know what to say. But you could ask Lin Yi for help. Maybe he'd be able to catch the suspect soon," Huaijuan said, regretting it a little as soon as he finished the sentence. "Sorry, Eagle, I sold you out," but thinking about the relationship between Lingshan and Lin Yi, Huaijuan didn't think too much of it. If Lin Yi and Ling Shan's relationship had really reached that stage, then there was no way Eagle wouldn't help Ling Shan, the suspect. Ling Shan paused, but Huaijuan had already hung up. Ling Shan gritted her teeth in anger. Lin Yi, you bastard. You've ruined my reputation. Ling Shan, however, only thought about it hatefully. She quickly arranged for the police force to do a large-scale search of the crime scene according to Huaijuan's analysis. Huaijuan, on the other hand, quickly drove to Songshan's Medicine University after hanging up. Songshan Medical University was one of the most famous medical universities in the country. It even enjoyed a certain level of prestige in the world. Many foreign students came here to study traditional Chinese medicine for no other reason than the director of the School of Chinese Medicine, Guan Shuamin. Guan Shuamin enjoyed a high reputation in the medical world. He was a leading figure in the field of TCM. Although the Guan family was not a prominent family, with Guan Shuamin's presence, the Guan family had become one of the prominent families. Who dared to say that they were not sick? Who would dare say that they wouldn't be able to get Guan Shuamin's help? Therefore, even though the Guan family had only started to develop in the past 10 years, it was not inferior to those big families at all. It was just that his foundation was still shallow, but it was not a big problem. Who would go against the Guan family? Going against the Guan family was the same as going against the other great families. Huaijuan's family, the Yangs, was also one of the big families. It was normal for them to ask Guan Shuamin to treat them. Guan Shuamin rarely went to class anymore, and only gave a weekly lecture to the students of the School of Chinese Medicine. His lectures were targeted at the students of the School of Chinese Medicine, but many students from other faculties came to listen to his lectures as well. One reason was because of Guan Shuamin's reputation, and the other was because Guan Shuamin really did have something useful to say. Guan Shuamin lived in the family area of the school, in a private villa area. The people living here were all the leaders of the school, as well as the famous professors of the school. Huaijuan was driving a police car, but he was still stopped when he entered the villa area, and was only allowed to pass after a careful registration. After all, there were many national-level academicians like Guan Shuamin, and some even had international titles. He parked the car in front of Shuamin's villa and got out. He was just about to ring the doorbell when the door opened at that moment, and a pretty girl walked out. She paused when she saw Huaijuan, a smile forming on her face. "Young bro, you're here for Grandpa, Xian, going to work?" Huaijuan guessed that Guan Xian was going to work, judging from her neat and tidy attire. "Yeah." Guan Xian nodded. "I need to leave early, or I'll miss the commuter bus." "You don't have a car?" Huaijuan blinked at Guan Xian's words. Guan Xian was taking a commuter bus. "I just started working, where would I get the money for a car?" Guan Xian smiled. "Young bro, Grandpa has a guest. You'll have to wait for a while after you go up." "Alright, go then. Don't be late." Huaijuan nodded to Guan Xian. He could tell that Guan Xian wasn't relying on her family. It was rare to see rich girls like her, and even Ling Shan had her own private car. Guan Xian didn't lock the door. She was familiar with Huaijuan, and knew that he wasn't a bad guy. Huaijuan didn't ring the doorbell again, and went straight upstairs. He saw Guan Shuamin taking the pulse of an old man in the living room, a middle-aged man and woman standing beside him. "How's my father, Elder Guan?" the man asked carefully as he looked at Guan Shuamin. "Not too good. It's very serious." Guan Shuamin didn't mince words as he spoke in front of the old man. "His heart muscle's been deteriorating, and it's almost impossible to cure it. Regular acupuncture should be able to keep it under control." The old man evidently knew his condition well, and didn't react too much to Guan Shuamin's bluntness. The middle-aged man, on the other hand, was a little anxious when he heard that Guan Shuamin could keep it under control. "Can it?" "That's all right, it'll be fine as long as it doesn't worsen or act up. He'd seen a lot of doctors, but none of them had been able to do anything about it. He'd come to Guan Shuamin's place out of curiosity, but hadn't expected to find a solution. That's not a problem. Guan Shuamin nodded. Acupuncture once a week can keep it under control for a week, and if it's done well, another 10 years shouldn't be a problem. Another 10 years? The old man was quite happy to hear Guan Shuamin's words. 10 years is a lot of things we can do. Then we'll have to trouble you, Elder Guan. We live in Yanjing, and as for the weekly acupuncture, we'll pay for the treatment fee, and we'll reimburse you for the travel back and forth. The middle-aged man said. I don't have the time, the acupuncture has to be done here. Guan Shuamin rejected the offer mercilessly. He had his own rules when it came to treating patients, and he didn't have to do it himself. The middle-aged man was in a difficult position. His father was already so old, wouldn't it kill him to go through the trouble every week? Chapter 118. A master doctor, you should find someone else. Guan Shuamin didn't even look at the middle-aged woman as he stood up, clearly intending to send them off. The middle-aged man's lungs were about to explode at the sight of his wife throwing a tantrum. It hadn't been easy finding a doctor who could treat his father's illness, but she'd offended him just like that. Was Guan Shuamin an ordinary doctor? Did he lack money, and even double the fee? The middle-aged man stomped his feet in anger, raising his arm and slapping the middle-aged woman across the face. Shut up, Huiru. Huiru was dumbfounded by the slap. She covered her face and stared dumbly at her man, who ignored her and chased after Guan Shuamin. Elder Guan, don't stoop to her level. Don't be angry, let's talk this through. The middle-aged couple was the middle-aged service workers Lin Yi had met in the business district. The man's name was Lu Tianyi, and the woman's name was Wu Huiru. Guan Shuamin was just a little angry, but felt that Lu Tianyi's words made sense. There was no need for him to stoop to the level of a woman who was throwing a tantrum. The patient was more important. And so, he turned around and walked back. I'll stay here. Tianyi, you two go back to Yanjing. Elder Lu spoke up, not even looking at Huiru. It was clear that he was disappointed in his daughter-in-law as well. Dad, you. Lu Tianyi looked at his father worriedly. It's fine, you two go back to your work. This old man here is free, so I'll just treat it as a vacation. Rent me a house nearby, and I'll live here. It's close to Professor Guan, and the environment is pretty good. Elder Lu said with a smile and a wave of his hand. All right. Lu Tianyi knew that no one could change his father's mind. He took out his phone and dialed a number. Is this Principal Zhang? It's Lu Tianyi, my father's decided to live on campus. Please arrange a house close to Guan's house for me. All right, I'll be waiting for your news. Huaijun had been trying to figure out who the old man and the middle-aged couple were, and he was even more surprised now that the middle-aged man was on the phone. This Principal Zhang was most likely the headmaster of Songshan Medical University, and Lu Tianyi was able to get him a house close to Guan Shuamin's house with just a phone call. This wasn't simple at all. One had to know that all the people living in the villa district were at least at the dean level, especially the high-end villas near Guan Shuamin's house. Shuamin's Guan Shuamin Guan's house. Shuamin turned to Huaijun after he was done with Elder Lu. Yang, you're here. Take a seat, we'll talk when we're done here. You can go watch TV or surf the internet for a while. All right, Grandpa Guan. Don't mind me, go do your thing. Huaijun and Shuamin were quite familiar with each other by this point, and he didn't bother with formalities. He sat down in front of the TV and switched channels. Shuamin, on the other hand, was arranging Elder Lu's treatment plan. Lu Tianyi was ready to leave with his father the next day. Right, Elder Guan. Do you know a young doctor who's really good at massaging? He's an Eastern medicine practitioner, right? Lu Tianyi was reminded of Lin Yi all of a sudden. As far as he was concerned, Lin Yi's massaging techniques were very advanced. If he were to cooperate with acupuncture, the effects would be even more obvious. Lin Yi's miraculous massaging techniques were still fresh in Lu Tianyi's memory. There was a saying that age didn't determine one's ambitions. Massaging techniques are good. Xuemin blinked. You mean Eastern medicine? I think so. Tianyi nodded. We were shopping in the business district the day before yesterday when my father got sick all of a sudden. We didn't have any medicine at the time, and it was at a critical juncture when a young doctor gave him a massage. My father recovered very quickly. Massage. Just a massage can cure angina pectoris. Xuemin was even more astonished. He knew that Eastern medicine was a magical discipline, and that it was a saying that one should never be too old to learn. He might be famous in the country, but Xuemin knew that Eastern medicine was a vast and profound field, and he was still a long way from mastering it. However, he also knew that angina couldn't be cured by a simple massage. It could be controlled with acupuncture. Although the chances weren't very high, there was still hope. Even he himself would use Western medicine for emergency treatment, and after his father returned to normal, he would use acupuncture to control the condition. Yeah, he just massaged my father a couple of times, and he's slowly recovering. Tianyi's heart skipped a beat as he looked at Xuemin's shocked face. He didn't know much about Eastern medicine, but he could tell from Xuemin's expression just how miraculous the doctor's skills were. Even Xuemin couldn't believe it. How is this possible? Xuemin frowned. Massaging has such a magical effect. Didn't he use any other methods? No, I was just beside him, and he just happened to pass by here. If he didn't know the girl who was driving, he probably wouldn't have come to meddle. Speaking up to this point, Lu Tianyi blushed a little and glared at his wife. If it wasn't for the Wu family, he would have divorced his wife a long time ago. It was really too embarrassing. She was an unreasonable shrew, and he didn't know what kind of upbringing she had when she was young. Fortunately, Xuemin didn't care about anything other than massaging. After hearing what Lu Tianyi said, he thought for a while and said, Eastern medicine is broad and profound. I've read in a medical book that in ancient times, people used qigong and massage to treat illnesses, and this effect could be achieved. However, it's been lost in history now. I'm not sure if the person you're talking about knows this method. Oh. If that's the case, then isn't that person very amazing? Lu Tianyi was a little regretful. If he knew that young man had such amazing medical skills, he wouldn't have let him go. Even if he begged, he should have asked if there was any hope of curing his father's illness. It was just that he didn't know at the time. Sigh, if what you said is true, then this person's medical skills are probably above mine. But, when did such an amazing Eastern medicine doctor come to Songshan? How come I didn't know about it? Xuemin tried hard to recall if there was such a master among the people he knew, but unfortunately, not only was there no one, he hadn't even heard of it. Chapter 119. It's too late, around 20. Xuemin's brows furrowed tightly, so young and already so good at medicine. Could he be from some hidden family of miracle doctors? Xuemin may have been promoted to a very high position, and he was renowned throughout the world for his acupuncture skills, but he knew very well that there were many people in the world who were very good at medicine, but didn't show their faces to the public. He'd met one when he was younger. He'd learned acupuncture from him. He'd barely scratched the surface, but it was enough to make him famous throughout the world. That was why Xuemin was surprised to hear that the person was around 20, but he didn't doubt it. The master he'd met back then wasn't that old as well. But Xiumin wasn't naive enough to think that the person he'd met back then would still be young after all these years. Plus, Lu Tianyi had said that the person was around 20, but the person he'd met was at least 30. Could it be that he'd practiced some sort of divine art that allowed him to live younger and younger? It didn't seem possible. Professor Guan, I've seen the young man after that, and I can confirm that he's no older than 20. He had a mature aura about him, but judging from his face, he couldn't be too old. Elder Lu, who'd been listening on the side, spoke up. If that's the case, then I really don't know who you're talking about. There are a few famous masseurs in Songshan, and even the youngest one is in his 50s. Xiumin didn't finish his sentence, but no matter how bad one's eyes were, it was impossible to mistake an old man in his 50s for a 20-year-old boy. I see. Lu Tianyi was a little disappointed. Then there's nothing I can do. Didn't you guys leave his contact information that day? Lu Tianyi didn't know what to do, but Xiumin was intrigued. How many people in the world could be an expert in traditional Chinese massage with such miraculous effects? As a leading figure in the traditional Chinese medical world, Xiumin really wanted to get to know this masseur. Perhaps if they could have a discussion, he'd be able to benefit a lot from acupuncture. There were many similarities between massage and acupuncture. They were both treated through acupuncture points. We did give him a way to contact us. Tianyi said, a little awkwardly. He didn't think too much about it at the time, but Xiumin's unusual expression made him realize just how powerful that person was. My father told him to contact us when he's in Yanjing. Guan Xiumin smiled, but there was a hint of disdain and indifference in his smile. If an ordinary young doctor knew old man Lu's identity, he would probably think of ways to curry favor with him, right? However, to a person with superb medical skills who lived in seclusion, this was nothing. If a 20-year-old lad wanted fame, wealth, and status, he could make a name for himself just by relying on his superb massage skills. However, he had never heard of such a person. It was obvious that he didn't care about fame and fortune. This was very rare for a 20-year-old young man. Guan Xiumin thought back to when he was young. After receiving the guidance of that expert, he too wanted to make a name for himself. Guan Xiumin couldn't help but feel ashamed. This was a real expert. It would be strange if such an expert would take the initiative to contact old man Lu. Lu Tianyi didn't notice anything, but although old man Lu was old, he was very shrewd. He could read the hidden meaning in Guan Xiumin's faint smile. His heart couldn't help but skip a beat. He was afraid that he had missed a great opportunity to cure his disease. Thinking back to Lin Yi's indifferent expression that day, it seemed like there was something he didn't say. Perhaps he really did have a way. Thinking up to here, old man Lu felt a little regretful. It seemed like he wasn't enthusiastic enough. That day, it was obvious that Lin Yi had a grudge against his family because of Wang Xinyan. He saved him only because he didn't want his friend to be implicated. If he contacts you, please inform me, Mr. Lu. Thank you. Guan Xiumin didn't have a choice. In the current situation, he could only hope that the expert would call the Lus on a whim. It was only then that Tianyi's heart skipped a beat. Guan Xiumin said, trouble, twice in a row. This kind of tone was something that they had never heard before since they entered the room. The Lus were powerful, but Guan Xiumin didn't need anything from them. On the contrary, all the noble houses had things they needed from Guan Xiumin. The Lus wouldn't put on airs in front of Guan Xiumin. This was also why he slapped his wife earlier. Was Guan Xiumin someone you could yell at? If word got out, the other noble houses would laugh their heads off. They'd say that the Lus were idiots for offending a miracle doctor, but Guan Xiumin had said, trouble twice in a row for a mere doctor. No matter how stupid Lu Tianyi was, he knew how important that doctor was to Guan Xiumin. Back then, he sighed. All right, of course. Lu Tianyi was a person of high status. Although he regretted it, he didn't show it on his face. He spoke politely to Guan Xuemin. All right. You guys prepare a place to stay then. We'll start the acupuncture tomorrow. Guan Xuemin nodded and stood up, indicating that he was sending them off. All right, Professor Guan. We'll be on our way then. Lu Tianyi said as he helped Elder Lu down the stairs with Wu Huiru, who was covering her face with her hands. Guan Xuemin didn't send them off. He turned to Huaijuan instead. Yang, there's no rush, right? No, Grandpa Guan, those people were. Huaijuan hadn't seen this family before, and it seemed like they weren't locals. Especially since that Lu Tianyi mentioned something about Yanjing. Oh, Yanjing's house Lu, a big house. The doctor's elder is Lu Zhenhu, he's 80 this year. He's in good health, but he's sick. Guan Xuemin and Huaijuan started talking about the Lus. The two were quite familiar with each other now. So it's Yanjing's house Lu. No wonder they could get the principal to prepare a house with just a phone call. Huaijuan smiled. Let's stick to the old routine. Acupuncture won't have much effect on you anymore, but it's better than nothing. Hang in there, I'll go to Yanjing next week for an Eastern medicine symposium. I'll use your condition as a case study and discuss it with others, see if there's anything we can do. Guan Xuemin said. Chapter 120. Looking at the prescription, keep it up. It'd be great if it was just keeping it up. Guan Xuemin sighed. It's not like you don't know how damaging those painkillers are to your body. Over time, let's not even talk about whether they're still effective or whether your body will develop resistance to them. Even if they don't, you'll still be worn down by the side effects of those painkillers, right? Huaijuan remembered something all of a sudden when Guan Xuemin mentioned painkillers, the prescription Lin Yi gave him. He'd gone to the pharmacy with the intention of giving it a try that day. He'd boiled the medicine a couple of times when he couldn't sleep, and the effects were truly miraculous. His body didn't hurt after a while, and he slept all the way until dawn, feeling indescribably refreshed. It was a hell of a lot better than using painkillers in the middle of the night and having to use them again. Huaijuan wasn't expecting Lin Yi's prescription to be this effective either. He'd been drinking the medicine for the past couple of days, and the pain had been under control. As expected of an eagle, a godlike existence in the team. Huaijuan couldn't help but sigh at his own inferiority. It wasn't just him, everyone in the team who'd fought alongside Lin Yi before was impressed. No one was jealous of their goddess infatuated with Lin Yi, because they felt that it was only natural. It couldn't be any more normal than that. Huaijuan remembered the prescription Lin Yi gave him when Guan Xuemin mentioned the painkillers. He hesitated for a moment, deciding that Lin Yi wasn't going to tell anyone about it. Lin Yi was probably on a special mission right now. What if he brought trouble upon himself? On the other hand, Guan Xuemin was his elder. He'd be dead a long time ago if it weren't for Guan Xuemin. Over the past few days, she had been relying on Xuemin's acupuncture and painkillers to keep her alive. Grandpa Guan. A friend of mine gave me a prescription a couple of days ago, something that can replace the painkiller. I tried it, and the effects were very obvious. The effect was a lot longer than the painkiller, and I only need to drink it once a night. Huaijuan decided to leave part of the story unsaid. He'd be able to cover both sides at least. Prescription. Replace analgesics. Guan Xuemin's eyes widened. Pharmacy. Yes. Huaijuan nodded, embarrassed by the glare. And it's effective on you. Xuemin had more surprises today than he had ever eaten in his life. She'd heard from Lu Tianyi that a 20-year-old miracle doctor had saved Elder Lu's heart attack with just a massage, and Huaijuan, on the other hand, had a prescription that could replace Western medicine's painkillers, and was even more effective than the painkillers. What was wrong with this world? When did the Chinese medicine world become so crazy? Why were there so many experts? I won't lie to you, Grandpa Guan. This prescription is very effective on me. Not only does it suppress the pain, but it also makes me feel refreshed the next day. Huaijuan said honestly. Oh. Can I see the prescription? Xuemin was worried that there might be illegal drugs like poppies in the prescription at first. It'd be normal for the painkillers to be effective if there were, but it'd be very damaging to the body. But then again, Huaijuan was a police officer, and a captain at that. How could he not know what poppies were? There was no way he'd touch them. Plus, poppies weren't something you could buy from a regular pharmacy. If Huaijuan had grabbed the medicine according to the prescription, then it had to be something very common, something you could find in regular pharmacies. Xuemin realized that he was overthinking things. Xuemin smiled bitterly at the look on Huaijuan's face. A lot of prescriptions were top-secret stuff, and Dr. Kong, for example. Didn't he use a prescription for an injury medicine to build a pharmaceutical company? He'd even established a supply relationship with the military, turning House Kong into a rising noble house. If Huaijuan's prescription was really that effective, and didn't have any side effects, then it shouldn't be any less valuable than Dr. Kang's injury medicine. Asking to see the prescription was a bit too much, Xuemin thought. Thus, he hurriedly explained, "Little Yang, don't overthink it. I know that many prescriptions are confidential. I wanted to see if there were any medicinal herbs with side effects. Grandpa Guan, the prescription isn't something that can be leaked, but it's fine if you want to see it." Huaijuan paused. "I'll show it to you right away, but I hope you won't leak it before my friend gives me permission, of course. I understand the rules, Yang. Don't worry, I won't put you in a difficult position. I won't let anyone else use this prescription before your friend gives his permission." Xuemin was overjoyed at Huaijuan's words. A prescription like this would give him a lot of inspiration, even if he couldn't use it himself. Huaijuan had kept the prescription on him the other day, and handed it to Xuemin after taking it out. Huaijuan knew Lin Yi's personality. He'd tell him if it was something that needed to be kept secret, and if he didn't, then it meant that there was no need to keep it a secret. Still, he hadn't gotten Lin Yi's permission yet, so Huaijuan told Xuemin to keep it a secret. Xuemin took the prescription carefully and started looking at it. It was fine at first, but the shock on his face grew deeper and deeper as he read out the names of the herbs. "This is a prescription." Xuemin was a bit dumbfounded on the spot. The ingredients on the list couldn't be any more ordinary, and none of them were particularly expensive. A few of them, such as Gastrodia alata, did have the effect of calming pain. He'd used these herbs on Huaijuan before, but the effects weren't as obvious. Could it be that these herbs had a different effect when put together? Xuemin was surprised, but he was a leading figure in the field of Eastern medicine. He knew that a single ingredient in a prescription could make a huge difference in the effects of the medicine. These herbs were mostly used for nerve and muscle pain, and there wasn't anything special about them. The only thing Xuemin was sure of was that these herbs weren't poisonous, and they didn't contain anything overbearing like poppy seeds. Chapter 121. Lin Yi is a miracle doctor, no. Xuemin said with a shake of his head. Eastern medicine sure is deep and profound, and I've learned a lot from it today. I can't believe that a couple of normal herbs would have such a miraculous effect when put together. I don't know the theory behind it yet, but the fact that it's working on you means that the prescription is real. Then I can take it without worry. Huaijuan's decision to take the medicine without hesitation was entirely due to his trust in Lin Yi. Who wouldn't trust a man who'd entrust his back to Huaijuan on the battlefield? What could he possibly do to him? Huaijuan, however, couldn't help but be shocked at Xuemin's affirmation of the prescription. The fact that Xuemin was saying this was proof of how miraculous the prescription was. Of course. The person who gave you the prescription must be a big shot in the Eastern medicine world, right? Xuemin sighed. Of course, I'm not trying to find out his name, but I'd like to meet him and ask him some questions if I have the chance. Grandpa Guan, I'll pass on your message if I see him again. But... Huaijuan said, troubled. I understand. It's fine if he doesn't want to see me, haha. I know my place, at least. Miracle doctors are pretty busy, after all. Xuemin said, understanding. Miracle doctor. Huaijuan almost faint. Lin Yi was a miracle doctor. He knew that Lin Yi was a god of war on the battlefield, but he didn't know that he was a miracle doctor. The medicine he brought back from his hometown was quite effective, but that didn't make him a miracle doctor, did it? All right. I'll pass on the message. Huaijuan nodded, not in a position to say anything else. That's good, Yang. You look like you're in good spirits, evidently the prescription is working. It looks like it won't be a problem if your body doesn't develop a resistance to the medicine. Xuemin had been observing Huaijuan ever since he'd entered the room. Traditional Chinese medicine was all about observation, and this observation referred to the patient's expression, complexion, body shape, posture, and tongue, in order to detect any abnormalities in the internal organs. Traditional Chinese medicine practitioners had gradually come to realize that the external organs of the body, especially the face, tongue, and tongue coating, were closely related to the internal organs. If there were any changes in the yin, yang, and blood of the organs, it would definitely be reflected on the surface of the body. Just as the spiritual pivot, internal organs chapter says, look at the external response to understand the internal organs, then you will know the illness. The divine physician of this generation, Bien Ke, was able to determine Kai Huangong's condition through looking. Bien Ke left after looking at Marquis Huan, which meant that Bien Ke knew that Kai Huangong was beyond saving with just one look and left immediately. Guan Xuemin wasn't at Bien Ke's level yet, but Huaijuan's complexion was noticeably better than before. Guan Xuemin could tell that it was the result of the herbal medicine. Then I can stop using the painkillers? Huaijuan wasn't expecting his miraculous captain to give him yet another big surprise. Of course you can stop that. You don't even need acupuncture. Guan Xuemin said, in the past, acupuncture was only to help you refresh your mind, stimulate your nerves, and relieve the damage caused by the painkillers. But now, it's no longer necessary. You're full of energy, so you don't need me anymore, Grandpa Guan. That's not what I meant. Huaijuan panicked. My friend's prescription. Huaijuan was having a hard time explaining himself. He was afraid that Guan Xuemin would think otherwise. After all, he'd been looking for Guan Xuemin all this time, and he'd taken someone else's prescription without telling Guan Xuemin first. It was a little like he didn't trust Guan Xuemin, but Huaijuan couldn't say no to the person who gave him the prescription. Compared to Guan Xuemin, Huaijuan was closer to Lin Yi. Ha, look at you, Yang. What are you so nervous about? I'm more than happy that you're able to find a better miracle doctor to treat you. There's no need for me to not give you acupuncture. Guan Xuemin explained with a smile, seeing through Huaijuan's thoughts. Plus, like I said, I'm happy enough to meet someone as powerful as him. I'm just an apprentice before him, why would I be unhappy about something like this? I see, I've been thinking too much. Huaijuan sighed in relief. I'll pass on your message, Grandpa Guan, but I can't decide if he wants to meet me or not, of course. Guan Xuemin nodded. Yang, come visit me often even if you don't do acupuncture anymore. We've been together for so long, I'll miss you a little if you don't come. Don't worry, Grandpa Guan. I'll come when I'm free. Huaijuan promised. Huaijuan decided to go talk to Lin Yi after leaving Guan Xuemin's villa. He wanted to talk to him about Guan Xuemin, as well as the prescription, he'd given it to Guan Shuamin on his own accord. Lin Yi made an assorted fried rice with the leftovers from Peng Zhan's banquet in the morning, taking a bite and leaving the rest for Meng Yao and Yushu. He went back to his room and took the medicine he'd brewed for Huaijuan, planning to give it to him when he had time today. There was a saying that went like this. After eating Lin Yi's fried rice, Meng Yao didn't give Lin Yi a hard time at all. Instead, her face was blushing red, surprising Lin Yi. Did the girl change her policy? Was she trying to mess with him now that she couldn't kick him out? After all, he'd gotten into a little misunderstanding with Meng Yao before. She'd drunk a soda with his saliva on it, and while it wasn't a big deal to him, it was a little serious for a conservative girl who'd never had a boyfriend before. As a result, Lin Yi understood Meng Yao's attitude towards him. It wasn't a big deal. Yushu, on the other hand, was looking at things from a bystander's point of view, and that was why their relationship was different. Lin Yi, you're not eating? Meng Yao asked as she looked at Lin Yi, who'd just come out of the room. I've already eaten, you guys eat. Lin Yi said, changing back into his uniform. Oh, why were you wearing your uniform again? Where's the clothes I bought you yesterday? Meng Yao frowned as she looked at Lin Yi's uniform. The school didn't force students to wear uniforms. After all, it wasn't as strict in high school as it was in elementary school. Students from slightly better families wouldn't wear uniforms all the time. Chapter 122. The beautiful times at school. I think it's pretty good. I'll change back if you don't like it. Lin Yi didn't really mind. He just wanted to experience the life of a student, an era that used to be so far away from him. Now that it was within his reach, Lin Yi wanted to immerse himself in it as much as he could. There was no toil like back home, no nervousness and danger on the battlefield, no fear of missions. Everything was so peaceful, and Lin Yi was starting to like his current life a little. Why hasn't the girl from the next class passed by my window yet? The snacks in his mouth, the manga in his hand, the first love in his heart, Lin Yi always felt that the life in the song was so far away from him, that he and the character in the song were people from two different worlds. Thinking about it. The beauty from the next class passing by his window. Then, a little flirting. That should be pretty good, right? As a result, Lin Yi would always read novels about rebirth to reminisce about the past. For example, there was a novel called Fishman 2 called Very Pure Very Flirtatious Prequel. There was this kind of pure school life in the novel, and Lin Yi could reminisce about it. If the miss and her employer, Peng Zhan, didn't object, he could try a pure relationship. Like with Tang Yin. Or with Yushu. Why was he thinking about this bad girl? Lin Yi glanced at Yushu. He had to admit that Yushu was pretty, and had a great body as well. But the problem was that she was the Miss' best friend. He decided to let it go, or the Miss would really flip out. Oh. What does it have to do with me whether you change or not? What do you mean I don't like it? Do whatever you want. Meng Yao was a little pissed off at Lin Yi's words. Any other guy would have been more than happy to wear the clothes she bought for him every day, but Meng Yao wanted to say that she liked it when he wore yesterday's clothes, but the words turned into the Miss pride and self-esteem. She sighed deeply in her heart, blaming herself. She wasn't as tough as Shu, daring to say anything she wanted. I'll wear it tomorrow then. Lin Yi said with a smile. Yeah, Yao told me last night that you look really good in casual clothes. Yushu interrupted. Shu. Meng Yao was about to explode. She thought that Yushu was the tough one, but this slip of the tongue ended up leaking the contents of their conversation last night. Lin Yi, on the other hand, looked at Meng Yao, surprised. He didn't expect the Miss to be honest at all. Li Fu's car stopped in front of the villa as they were talking, and he honked twice. Meng Yao and Yushu put down their chopsticks, grabbed their bags, and made their way to the villa. Lin Yi looked at the leftovers on the table. He didn't need to be cleared up right away. Lin Yi said. Lin Yushu Lin Yi. Lin Yi picked up his bag and left the villa as well. Pingzhan wasn't around this time, and Lin Yi was still in the front passenger seat. The car started moving slowly towards the school, and Lin Yi got out of the car after getting Faubert to stop. Yushu said as she watched Lin Yi's back. Yao Yao, you're not going to be a good shield if you keep acting like this. Let me think about it. I can't really accept having a boyfriend all of a sudden. Meng Yao shook her head, a little embarrassed. It's fake, but other people won't know. What's the point if other people know it's fake? Yushu was speechless. Lin Yi hadn't even taken 2 steps when he heard someone calling out to him. He turned around to see Kong Xiaobo sprinting towards him. Tang Yin. It seemed that the two of them took the same bus. Boss, what was that car just now? Kong Xiaobo had seen Lin Yi get out of a luxury car. He wasn't able to see what the car was from a distance, but it looked like it was at least 1,000,000 yuan, of friends. He was passing by, so he gave me a ride. Lin Yi said faintly. Meng Yao didn't ask him to say anything, and Lin Yi wouldn't say anything. It was better this way. He was still thinking about developing a pure relationship, and if people found out that he was the Miss Follower, it looks like a pretty cool car. Kong Xiaobo said, a little envious. He suddenly slapped the back of his head and lowered his voice mysteriously. Boss, guess who I took the same bus with today? Tang Yin. Lin Yi said. Ugh. Kong Xiaobo blinked. How did you know? Wasn't she not far behind you? Lin Yi smiled bitterly. I'm not blind. It was supposed to be something exciting, but now that you put it like that, it seems normal. Kong Xiaobo's face was gloomy. I wasn't excited at first, Lin Yi said. Tang Yin's a little prick. Whoever messes with her will be unlucky. What did you say, Lin Yi? Tang Yin saw Kong Xiaobo, Lin Yi's follower, the moment she got on the bus, but she didn't pay attention to him. When he got off the bus, she saw that he had bumped into Lin Yi, so she focused her attention on Lin Yi. Tang Yin saw the scene of Lin Yi getting off the luxurious car. She snorted at his explanation to Kong Xiaobo, that it was a friend's car. Wasn't he just a rich young master pretending to be poor at school? He was wearing high-end casual clothes yesterday, and today he was wearing a school uniform. Tang Yin thought that Lin Yi was a hypocrite. When she heard Lin Yi and Kong Xiaobo talking about her, Tang Yin's ears perked up. It wasn't until Lin Yi started talking about her that Tang Yin subconsciously blurted out. She regretted it after saying it. She didn't want to have too much interaction with Lin Yi. Tang Yin didn't deny that Lin Yi looked manly, but it didn't mean that he was manly. It was a unique charm, and Tang Yin wasn't blind. She was much stronger than Zhou Ruoming. But Tang Yun understood that rich young masters like him treated women like toys. She'd seen too many examples of this. Her childhood playmates were one of them. Tang Yin felt a wave of sadness and helplessness every time she thought about her boyfriend abandoning her. Who asked her family to be the weaker group? She couldn't just go to the young master's house and cry, could she? They might not even open the door. Lin Yi didn't think that Tang Yin would care about his conversation with Kong Xiaobo. He turned around and smiled. I said you're pretty. Chapter 123. Chapter 123. Zhong Linyi didn't feel much pain, but he still smiled bitterly. It seemed like Tang Yun didn't like him at all. He'd been thinking about developing a pure relationship with her this morning. How did it end so quickly? It seemed like Tang Yun wasn't going to happen, and Yushu didn't seem likely either. Boss, why's Tang Yun so mad at you? Kong Xiaobo didn't get it. Lin Yi and Tang Yun didn't even know each other, so why was Tang Yun so mad at Lin Yi? Wouldn't the problem be solved if I knew? Lin Yi explained, speechless. That's true, eh? Boss, do you think Tang Yun likes you? Kong Xiaobo said all of a sudden. Likes me? What do you mean? Lin Yi paused as he looked at Kong Xiaobo, stunned. I heard that there's a guy from a few years ago, a girl in his class. She liked him a lot, and she'd always cause trouble for him. Whenever he skipped class or something, she'd give him a scolding. Xiaobo said. Do you think Tang Yun's the same? Lin Yi rolled his eyes. Couldn't you be serious? That's possible, but Tang Yun's only known me for 2.5 days. Does she like me already? Is that even possible? Lin Yi shook his head. If that was the case, then the miss would look for trouble with him all the time. Does that mean she likes me too? That's true. Kong Xiaobo laughed dryly as he walked with Lin Yi to school. Kong Xiaobo pointed at something not far away when they were almost at the school gates. Boss, look, it's Meng Yao and Yushu. Oh. Lin Yi hadn't been paying attention to Meng Yao and Yushu, so he wasn't surprised. Boss, look at the car they are in. It seems to be the same car as the one you were in just now. Kong Xiaobo's ability to discover was still very strong. Really? It's different, isn't it? Lin Yi said with a laugh. Let's go, don't mind them. That's true. It's too far away from us. It's not practical. Kong Xiaobo sighed. I have experienced the feeling of being high and mighty as a rich man. Lin Yi didn't know why Kong Xiaobo suddenly sighed with emotion. However, Kong Xiaobo's family conditions were not particularly good, but not bad. It could only be said to be average. So what did he mean? However, in order to keep Kong Xiaobo's attention away from the car, Lin Yi didn't ask much and quickened their pace into the school. A Mercedes-Benz S600L stopped in front of the school. It was quite a distance away from Faubert's Bentley, but it didn't get too close. That old man Li Fu's car is in front of us. Don't you remember what I said? Zhong Fabai glared at his son in the front passenger seat and lectured him in exasperation. I remember, Dad. Pin Liang replied carefully. I won't poke my nose into other people's business anymore. The other people's business he was talking about, of course, was Lin Yi's business. He didn't dare say that he was the one causing trouble for Lin Yi. Instead, he blamed Naipeo for Lin Yi's trouble. Naipeo's foot was stepped on by Lin Yi, so he went to get revenge. This way, he would be able to reduce some of the responsibility. Fabai was part gangster, and naturally, he valued brotherhood. He didn't go overboard when Pin Liang tried to get revenge for his brother. He only scolded him and told him to stay out of other people's business. Do you know that you almost ruined my plan this time? He sent my right-hand man, Heibao, to the police station, and I don't think he'll be able to get out for a few years. Luckily, he doesn't know much, or else. Fabai humphed. Remember, your first priority in school is to hook up with that girl, Meng Yao. Don't think about anything else. Do you understand? I understand, Dad. I'll try my best. Pin Liang promised. If you can get Meng Yao, your dad won't have to listen to your uncle anymore. Fabai patted Pin Liang's shoulder. Alright, go. Hurry up and do it before that old fox Pingzhan can react, or it'll be too late. Fabai wasn't an idiot. He did have some power in Songshan, but it was nothing compared to Pingzhan. If Pingzhan was looking for a son-in-law openly, he wouldn't be interested in Pin Liang. So, Fabai told his son to make the first move. Pin Liang agreed to his father's words. Although he hated Lin Yi, he couldn't do anything to Lin Yi without his father's support. If his father gave him his full support and got a team of security guards from the nightclub, Pinliang didn't believe that Lin Yi could fight 4 hands with 2 fists. Even if he could, what about 10 or 20? He didn't believe that he couldn't beat him to death. Lin Yi, I'll let you go for now. Once I hook up with Meng Yao, my father will be happy, and he'll gather his men for me. That'll be the day you die. Pinliang thought to himself hatefully. Even if he didn't want to, he could only keep it to himself. He wanted to see if he could think of a way to cause some trouble for Lin Yi and annoy him a little. As long as he didn't fight him head-on, Lin Yi wouldn't suspect him. Yao Yao. Pinliang took 2 steps forward and chased after her. Yao Yao, the fly's here again. I told you, you and Shield Bro wouldn't be in so much trouble if you got together with him earlier. Yushu giggled as she pointed behind her. Meng Yao rolled her eyes and turned around helplessly. Pinliang, are you deaf? Pinliang paused. Why was Meng Yao calling him deaf all of a sudden? What was going on? He should be the one calling her that. Why was she calling him that? Yao Yao. What do you mean? What deaf? Pinliang didn't know what was going on. Last time, you called me Yao Yao at the school gate. I told you not to call me Yao Yao, call me by my full name. So, I can only assume that you either have a problem with your IQ, or you're deaf. Meng Yao said. Pinliang's face darkened at Meng Yao's mockery. You're just a little prettier and from a better family, aren't you? Just wait until I catch up to you. I'll teach you a lesson. But since he couldn't catch up to her right now, Pinliang put on a flattering face. Isn't my uncle and Uncle Chu's colleagues? We're old friends, so I was thinking of calling you Yao Yao. Oh, you can call me whatever you want then. Meng Yao really couldn't be bothered with him anymore. Pinliang was overjoyed at Meng Yao's words. Did this mean that Meng Yao agreed to let him call her Yao Yao? Chapter 124. To his door, Pinliang took in a deep breath and clenched his fists as he watched Meng Yao and Yushu leave. What was so bad about him? Why didn't Meng Yao like him? What are you thinking about, Liang Yi? Pinliang was still sulking when someone tapped him on the shoulder. He turned around to see Zhou Ruoming. Oh, Ming bro, it's nothing. Pinliang wasn't going to spill the beans. Oh. Zhou Ruoming couldn't be bothered to ask Pinliang about his stupid stuff, he had something else to talk to him about. Liang Yi, I need to ask you something. That Lin Yi from your class, what's his background? Zhou Ruoming hated Lin Yi to the bone, even more so than Pinliang. He'd been so close to hitting on Tang Yun that Friday, forcing her to make a choice, but Lin Yi had ruined it. It pissed Zhou Ruoming off. But he didn't dare do anything rash. He didn't dare say anything after getting slapped by Lin Yi. What happened with Heibao Bro had left Zhou Ruoming in shock. He wanted to see how Pinliang's family was going to handle this. As a result, he didn't go after Lin Yi straight away. He came from a wealthy family as well, but his business wasn't as big as Fabai's. His brother, Zhou Ruoguang, was a gangster boss in the North District, and his underlings were ruthless. But to his disappointment, House Xiong didn't do anything after a few days, and Heibao Bro wasn't even fished out after being arrested. He was probably going to be sentenced. Zhou Ruoming was a little puzzled. Just what kind of background did Lin Yi have? Lin Yi, just a laborer. Pinliang said disdainfully. It never crossed his mind that his father was a laborer, and he was looking down on his father as well. Laborer. Zhou Ruoming thought that his ears were screwed up. How was it a laborer? A laborer studying in high school? What kind of joke was that? He's a transfer student, I heard he's from the mountains. He was wearing rags the first day, like a laborer. Pinliang's eyes lit up as he explained. He suddenly realized why Zhou Ruoming was asking about Lin Yi. Was he going to make a move on Lin Yi? He hadn't heard anything about Zhou Ruoming and Lin Yi. Is that so? Then why didn't you seek revenge after suffering such a huge loss a few days ago? Don't bring it up. Pinliang shook his head with a bitter smile. Pinliang's Lin Pinliang's. Lin long ago Lin's Dong master, Lin Yi didn't do anything. Let's not talk about it. Pinliang shook his head with a bitter smile. I called Heibao Bro out and got scolded by my old man. You know that my old man doesn't approve of me messing around in school. I'm not a match for that Lin Yi kid. He's from the countryside, and he's really strong. There's nothing I can do to him. Pinliang could tell that there was something going on between Zhou Ruoming and Lin Yi, but he didn't know the details. That didn't stop him from adding fuel to the fire. He wouldn't object if Zhou Ruoming were to teach Lin Yi a lesson. I see. So you're saying that Lin Yi doesn't have much of a background. Zhou Ruoming was afraid that Lin Yi was from a powerful family. He'd be in big trouble if he messed with Lin Yi. I don't know. Why do you keep asking about this kid? Pinliang pretended not to understand what Zhou Ruoming was getting at. Oh, nothing, I'm just curious. Curious. Zhou Ruoming said. I'm leaving now, my brothers are asking me to play basketball. Pinliang curled his lips. Curious. Curious my ass. But it seemed like Zhou Ruoming was going to make a move. That was good news. During the third period, Lin Yi and Kong Xiaobo walked out of the classroom when the dean, Wang Jifeng, walked over in a hurry. His face turned serious when he saw Lin Yi. Lin Yi, come with me. Oh, okay. Lin Yi knew that Wang Jifeng was pretending to be serious in front of Kong Xiaobo. Their relationship was a bit weird, but he couldn't expose it. He patted Kong Xiaobo's shoulder. Go to the restroom first, the dean is looking for me. Okay. Kong Xiaobo was a little worried, but he couldn't ask too much in front of the dean. He could only leave. After Kong Xiaobo left, Lin Yi asked, What's up, Dean Wang? It's like this. This is the case. Captain Yang of the police station's criminal police team is here. He has something to look for you. Wang Jifeng smiled bitterly. I think it's probably because of last week's incident. You should be careful. Don't talk nonsense. Just say that you don't know what he asks you. I will handle the other things for you on behalf of the school. Wang Jifeng took the responsibility for Lin Yi on his own accord. It seemed like he really wanted to build a good relationship with Lin Yi. Part of it was Lin Yi interrupting him the other day, but part of it was Pingzhan. Ah. Okay. Lin Yi knew that Huaijuan wasn't here because of last week's incident. It was most likely because the medicine he gave him was working, and the guy couldn't help but come looking for him. Still, the timing wasn't bad. If it were any other day, people would be suspicious if a criminal police captain came looking for a student out of the blue. But with last week's incident as a cover, no one would suspect anything. The two arrived at the dean's office, and Wang Jifeng pushed the door open. Captain Yang, I've brought Lin Yi here. But we have to make this clear. You can understand the situation, but I'll have to inform the principal if I want to take him away, just to understand the situation. Huaijuan smiled. Don't worry, Dean Wang, he won't cause any trouble for your work. You see. Maybe you should leave for now. If that's the case, you guys talk. Wang Jifeng nodded and let Lin Yi in. He then left the office and closed the door behind him. How was it? Did the prescription I gave you work? Lin Yi asked as he sat down on the sofa after Jifeng left. Eagle, you're amazing. The medicine works better than those painkillers. Huaijuan said excitedly as he punched Lin Yi, but Lin Yi dodged the punch without leaving a trace. Call me Lin Yi. Lin Yi corrected. Alright, Lin Yi is Lin Yi if you say so. Huaijuan didn't mind. The name was just a code. Lin Yi, there's something I need to apologize to you for. I've shown the prescription you gave me to the doctor who treated me. But he promised that he wouldn't tell anyone about it. Chapter 125. She's a bit careless, he wants to see you, but I haven't agreed yet. I just told him I'd try to contact him. Huaijuan said. I don't know what mission you're on, and it's not my place to ask. You don't have to see him if it's not convenient for you. Mission. Lin Yi smiled bitterly as he rubbed his nose. I really don't know what's going on with this mission, I don't even know where it's coming from. How could I not meet your savior? Of course I'll see him. Don't force it. Huaijuan said, touched. He knew that Lin Yi wasn't the type to get involved in other people's business, and Lin Yi wouldn't have the time to meet a stranger if it weren't for him. What's there to force it? I've got nothing better to do anyway. Lin Yi said with a smile. Plus, I have you as my backup, it'll be easier for me to do things in Songshan. Alright then, you set a time. Huaijuan said, not bothering to waste words with Lin Yi. There was no need for words of thanks, it'd be too cliché. Tomorrow. Tell Jifeng that he wants me to go to the police station to make a statement, I'll be able to get away that way. Otherwise, it'll count as me skipping school, I don't want to. Lin Yi said as he pointed at the door. Alright, I'll go talk to him later. Huaijuan nodded. It was a small matter. Oh, right, I forgot what I was supposed to be doing. I made you some medicine, drink it when you get home. Your body'll feel a lot better after the first stage, and I'll give you the second stage medicine. You'll be back to normal in about 3 months. Lin Yi said. 3 months. Huaijuan froze as he stared blankly at Lin Yi. If it's fast, it'll take at least 2 months. Lin Yi said, assuming that Huaijuan thought it was too long. The herbal soup isn't too tasty, but you'll have to bear with it for 2 months. Lin Yi, you're not joking, are you? My body'll be back to normal in 2 months. Like a normal person. Huaijuan was getting a little excited. Seriously. The doctor said that it's already a blessing that my condition hasn't worsened, but I can actually recover. Ugh, so you aren't afraid of drinking medicine? Lin Yi smiled. You still don't believe my words? I do. Of course he believed it. It's just too shocking. Huaijuan was truly shocked, but he trusted Lin Yi's words. On the battlefield, there had been many times when the enemy was about to catch up to them, but it was all because of Lin Yi's correct judgment that they were able to escape from danger, and then turn around and kill the enemy. Therefore, Lin Yi's prestige in the team was unparalleled. Lin Yi's words were also carried out by the team members without reservation. You brat. I'm afraid of drinking medicine. He did not even feel a bullet hitting his body, so why would he be afraid of drinking Chinese medicine? Are you mocking me? Ah. That's not necessarily true. I've seen some fearless people before, but they're afraid of injections and medicine. Lin Yi smiled. Come with me to the classroom later. I'll get it for you. Captain, you're so awesome. Huaijuan couldn't find the words to describe the joy he was feeling right now. He'd thought that every day of his life was worth it, and that he'd be able to live until the day the painkillers and massages stopped working. He'd be able to die at that point, but Lin Yi was able to cure it. Lin Yi was like a god in the team, but Huaijuan couldn't hide the shock he felt. Lin Yi definitely wasn't that old. If he wasn't wrong, he should be around the same age as Ning, 7 or 8 years younger than him. Yet, he seemed to be able to do everything. Where did he learn all this from? To be honest, I kind of miss those days, the rain of bullets every day. Lin Yi said, a little emotional when he heard Huaijuan call him captain. Yeah, there's also Ning. Huaijuan stopped abruptly as he realized that Lin Yi's face had darkened at the mention of that name. Let's not talk about that. Lin Yi sighed. The past is the past. But Ning's still asking about you. Huaijuan said, his heart aching for Ning, but he didn't want to go against his captain's wishes. Then tell her that Eagle's dead. Lin Yi said faintly, a trace of sadness in his eyes. Indeed, he had already returned an identity. Every mission was a chance for him to be reborn. Once the mission was over, his life would come to an end. But Huaijuan was about to say something when Lin Yi cut him off. Just tell her that the next time you see her. Lin Yi said. Long-term pain is better than short-term pain. You know very well that we're not meant for each other, and I might die one day. You don't want her to be a widow, do you? Huaijuan lowered his head helplessly. Lin Yi was right, his life was more dangerous than his job as a police. Lin Yi was a god of war, but who could guarantee that a god of war wouldn't die? Then Yuan Song from our team. Huaijuan said, remembering Lingshan all of a sudden. Lin Yi's relationship with Lingshan was pretty ambiguous. Would you believe me if I said I had nothing to do with her? Lin Yi smiled bitterly. He didn't think that Huaijuan would have heard about what happened at the hospital. News traveled a little too fast. All right, I believe you. Huaijuan nodded. But from a professional standpoint, you two are quite a good match. She's always on the front lines, sticking herself to the most dangerous places. How? I can tell, she's a bit of a tiger. Lin Yi said with a smile. She's actually quite cute. What, you're not going to consider her? The age difference is too big, and she treats me like a big brother. Wouldn't it be dirty of me to have any thoughts about her? Huaijuan said with a smile. Plus, my marriage. It's not up to me to decide. You know that now that I've transferred, my family's treating me as a part of their plan. They'll probably arrange a blind date for me next year or so. Let's go, I'll get the medicine. Lin Yi said as he walked towards the door. Huaijuan quickly followed. Wang Jifeng didn't go far. He waited quietly at the window at the end of the corridor. Seeing the door of the Academic Affairs office open, Wang Jifeng walked over quickly. Captain Yang, how is it? What's the matter? It's cleared up, it's nothing. Lin Yi was just defending himself. He'll go to the police station tomorrow to fill in his statement. Huaijuan said with a nod. I'm going to his class with Lin Yi to get some materials. You don't have to go, Mr. Wang. Chapter 126. Help solve a problem. Huaijuan sighed as he looked at the student-like captain. He'd always treated the guy like a god, but now he seemed more like a regular 12th grader than anything else. Once a day, in the morning, noon, and at night. Microwave it, or not. There aren't many rules, and there aren't many taboos. Just don't drink. Lin Yi said as he handed a bag of medicine to Huaijuan. There were only 2 cleaning students in the classroom at the moment, and no one was paying attention to what Lin Yi had brought back. It's been a while since I've had alcohol, and my body can't handle it. Huaijuan said with a bitter smile. This should be enough for a week, right? Yeah, a week's worth. Lin Yi nodded. I'll see how your body recovers after a week, and I'll give you the right medicine. All right, I'll be heading back then. I can't thank you enough. Where should I pick you up tomorrow? Or school? Huijuan asked. Let's meet at the school gates tomorrow. Park a little further away, and we'll talk. Lin Yi said after a moment's thought. After sending Huijuan off, Lin Yi turned around and headed to the washroom. He'd been planning on taking a piss when Jifeng stopped him, and it was only after Huijuan left that he reacted to the need. He saw Tang Yin's silhouette flashing by the door with a basin of water in her hands as he walked past Class 9. She must have been on duty, but retracted her head the moment she saw Lin Yi. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. Did the girl think that he'd come to her class to peep on her? Why else would she be hiding? Lin Yi grinned at her. I'm going to the washroom. Ah. Tang Yin blinked as she watched Lin Yi walk away. She stomped her feet angrily. What the hell was he talking about when he was going to the washroom? This guy is definitely flirting with me. She really wanted to rush over and pour a bucket of dirty water on Lin Yi's head, but she didn't dare to. She dared to occasionally make small moves to attack Lin Yi, but she didn't dare to do something so out of line. After all, Lin Yi was a young master. If she angered him, he would disregard his previous pretense and do something out of line. Tang Yun wouldn't be able to react in time. Tang Yin waited until Lin Yi was close enough to the washroom before running over and pouring away the dirty water like a thief. She quickly filled up a basin of fresh water and ran back to her class. However, before he could take 2 steps, he bumped into someone. He lost his grip on the water basin and it flew out. Ah, Tang Yun lowered her head when she saw who it was. Mr. Wang, do you know how to walk? Jifeng was about to explode. He'd wanted to come to class 5 to see if Lin Yi was alright, but Huijuan was there, and it wasn't his place to ask too many questions. He decided to ask Lin Yi in private to make sure he wasn't in trouble. In the end, just as he reached the door of grade 12 class 9, a student in front of him splashed a pail of cold water on his face, making him look like a drowned rat. Mr. Wang, I'm sorry. Tang Yin didn't know what to do. She was the kind of good student who only cared about her studies. She'd never made a mistake like this before. Splashing cold water on the head of a student wasn't a small matter. Although she didn't see the path clearly, she knew that it wasn't a good reason. I'm sorry. Is that it? Which class are you in? Wang Jifeng wiped the water off his face and sighed in relief when he saw that it was clean water. If it was dirty water, then he'd lose all his face as the dean. I'm in class 9. Tang Yin lowered her head. She'd never lied before, so she came clean when Wang Jifeng asked. In fact, lying was useless in front of class 9's door. Go back and write a self-reflection report, then read it in the broadcasting room. Wang Jifeng didn't care if the student did it on purpose or not, but he had to do something about it. Otherwise, where would his reputation as a dean go? Could other students splash water on her too? The broadcasting room. Tang Yun's heart skipped a beat. That was usually a place for bad students to reflect on. Today, it was her turn. She felt wronged at the thought. She wouldn't have run away if it weren't for Lin Yi. But how was she going to explain this to Mr. Wang? After all, it was a fact that she ran away rashly, but self-reflection. For a top student like Tang Yin, it was difficult. Tang Yin had never written a self-reflection report since she was young, nor did she make any mistakes. Tang Yin's eyes reddened at the thought. She was a girl, going to the broadcasting room to do self-reflection. Oh, Mr. Wang, did you just shower? But your hairstyle is pretty cool. You look a lot younger. Lin Yi came out of the washroom and saw the scene of Tang Yin accidentally splashing water on him. He couldn't help but laugh. This girl was too reckless. When he saw Wang Jifeng scolding Tang Yun, Lin Yi didn't think much of it. He wanted Wang Jifeng to teach this little troublemaker a lesson so that she wouldn't cause trouble for him. But when he saw that Tang Yun was about to cry, Lin Yi couldn't bear it anymore and walked over. Ah! Ugh! Wang Jifeng didn't think that he would meet Lin Yi at this time. Moreover, Lin Yi praised his hairstyle. It didn't matter if it was true or not, he couldn't say anything about Tang Yin splashing water on him. He could only nod. The weather is getting hotter. It'll be cooler if I take a shower. Oh, I thought Mr. Wang just finished exercising. Lin Yi laughed. Ha! I saw the students doing the bathroom, so I followed along. Wang Jifeng sweated as he looked at Lin Yi's evil smile. This kid really wasn't easy to deal with. Sure enough, he knew everything that had happened that day. Oh. Lin Yi nodded and suddenly turned to Tang Yin. Tang Yin, you're here. Don't wait for me. Go back to the classroom first. I have something to talk to Mr. Wang about. Ah. Tang Yin didn't expect Lin Yi to be this familiar with Wang Jifeng, chatting casually with him. Lin Yi was a young master with a strong background, after all, so Wang Jifeng naturally gave him some face. But at this moment, Tang Yin understood that Lin Yi was helping her out. Tang Yin felt sour in her heart. She was a top student, but she wasn't as useful as Lin Yi's identity. She looked at Lin Yi, then at Wang Jifeng. Wang Jifeng didn't think that Lin Yi and the girl who splashed water on him knew each other. When the girl raised her head, Wang Jifeng saw that it was Tang Yin, the prettiest girl in the school. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. It seemed like there was something going on between Lin Yi and her. No wonder Lin Yi pointed him out. It seemed like he wanted him to let Tang Yin go. Chapter 127. Tang Yin cried. Tang Yin was a little startled, not only because of how easily Wang Jifeng brushed it off, but also because of what he said at the end. He told Lin Yi to look for her later. Was that really what the dean would say? Didn't he hate it when boys and girls got too close together? Why was it today? Tang Yin sighed faintly. Was this all because of Lin Yi's identity? She went back to class absent-mindedly and didn't do anything else. She sat in her seat and quietly thought about the events of the past few days. She didn't know if Lin Yi really liked her or not. She snuck a peek out of the classroom window to see Lin Yi and Wang Jifeng chatting happily. Tang Yin curled her lips. Would you still be able to do that if you weren't a young master? Tang Yin was both afraid and annoyed of Lin Yi. It was fine if he cared about his image, since she could throw a tantrum in front of him and make things difficult for him. But what if he didn't care about anything? Tang Yin didn't dare imagine what he'd do. There were too many unscrupulous young masters in Songshan, and Tang Yin had heard of them before. If it weren't for Songshan's strict school rules, she wouldn't have been able to escape her fate. Fortunately, Songshan's first school was a star private school in the city, and even the province. Their enrollment rate had always been one of the best, and the board of directors had powerful backgrounds as well. Those young masters might be unruly, but they didn't dare cross the line in school. Otherwise, they'd be mercilessly expelled even if they had a background. She thought back to her childhood playmate, her best friend, who now had both legs crippled and stayed at home all day. She used to be like her, full of dreams and hope for the future, but now, it was said that children from poor families matured early, and Tang Yin was no exception. It wasn't that she didn't understand the fickleness of society. What happened to her father made her understand how weak her family was, but she didn't think that those young masters would take pity on her and help her family. Her best friend's boyfriend had said the same thing, saying that he'd help her family get rich and move out of the slums. He'd even boasted in front of her that he'd take care of everything for her family, but what happened after that? Little Tang Yin's heart unknowingly grew wary and guarded against young masters like Lin Yi. Perhaps she was too afraid of Lin Yi, and that was why she did something so extreme to protect herself. But Tang Yin also understood that if Lin Yi were to drop his disguise one day, her little actions wouldn't do anything to Lin Yi, and would only provoke him instead. Thinking up to here, Tang Yin regretted provoking him and stepping on his foot. What if he couldn't take it anymore? Tang Yin's mind was a mess until she heard a knock on the window, startling her. She raised her head in panic, and saw Lin Yi standing there with his hand on the window. It was obvious that he was the one who knocked. You. What are you doing? Tang Yin was a little scared. She was just thinking about whether or not Lin Yi could force himself on her, but Lin Yi appeared. Lin Yi pointed at the plastic handle on the window. Although he could tell what she was saying from the shape of her mouth, Tang Yin wouldn't be able to hear him. The sound insulation of the plastic window was quite good. Oh. Tang Yin realized that the window was closed, and Lin Yi wouldn't be able to hear her. Only then did he cautiously open the window. You seem to be afraid of me. Lin Yi realized that Tang Yin was guarding against him like a porcupine. This wasn't a normal phenomenon. He still wanted to start a pure relationship. He couldn't just let it die like this, right? Why would I be afraid of you? Tang Yin twisted her body unnaturally, distancing herself from Lin Yi. What about you? What do you want? Nothing. Lin Yi felt innocent. Although he was lusting after Tang Yin's looks, and she was indeed a beauty, he was a normal man. He would more or less have some thoughts, but he didn't do anything further. Tang Yin looked at his innocent eyes, and bit her lips angrily. You chased Zhou Ruoming away, and now you're trying to please my mother. You even gave me a dress, didn't you want to pursue me? Tang Yin was a little shy, but since the conversation had reached this point, she might as well make it clear so that Lin Yi could give up early. Ugh. Gave you a dress. Lin Yi didn't think that she would still think that he was the one who gave her the dress after he asked for 50 kuai. This gift was too good. He would open a gift company in the future, specializing in giving gifts to people. But wooing. It seemed that he was right. Tang Yun really thought that he was wooing her. She did all this just to get close to her. Lin Yi thought that Tang Yun wanted to woo her. Lin Yi could only smile bitterly. If Wai Juan knew about this, he would laugh his head off. Fine, I want to pursue you, so what? Lin Yi wanted to tease Tang Yin, so he nodded and admitted it. You. How could you do this? Tang Yin didn't think that once she provoked him, Lin Yi would really take off his disguise and admit it. She didn't know what to do, so she lowered her head and didn't dare to look at Lin Yi. She didn't have the courage to question him anymore. Tang Yin buried her head very low, almost into her collar. The back of her neck was originally covered by her hair, but her fair skin was reflected in Lin Yi's eyes, making his imagination run wild. Lin Yi wanted to tease her a bit more, but he saw Tang Yin's long eyelashes flutter, and her body was slightly moving up and down. There was a trace of tears at the corner of her eyes, sliding down her cheeks. Lin Yi jumped in fright. Tang Yin was crying. Little Thorn, she wasn't that weak, was she? He thought that she was strong when she stepped on his foot fiercely, but he didn't think that she would cry after a few words. Even Wang Jifeng didn't have that much strength. All right, don't cry. Lin Yi had never coaxed a girl before, and he was a bit flustered. He didn't know what to do. If you don't cry, I'll buy you candy. Tang Yun got even angrier as she listened to Lin Yi's nonsense, thinking that he was mocking her on purpose. She felt wronged and cried even harder as she laid her head on the table, sobbing. All right, as long as you don't cry, I'll promise you one thing, as long as it's within my power. Lin Yi had never promised anyone anything before, but if he made a promise, he would definitely keep it. If Wai Juan knew that the captain was making a promise just to coax a girl not to cry, he'd be shocked to death. Who cares? Tang Yin felt wronged, and ignored Lin Yi after that. Chapter 128. Barbecue Tips. Jifeng didn't really have much to discuss with Lin Yi. He just wanted to ask Lin Yi if Huijun was looking for him just for a statement. If not, he'd ask the principal, Ding Binggong, to step in and take care of the situation. Jifeng was relieved to hear that Tang Yun was fine. He knew that Lin Yi was protecting Tang Yun, so there was no need for him to be the bad guy. His weakness was still in Lin Yi's hands, and while private schools weren't as strict as public schools, it wouldn't end well for him if the board of directors found out about it. Lin Yi had hired him to manage the school with a high salary, not to mess around with women. Jifeng patted Lin Yi's shoulder before he left, telling him not to go overboard with his relationship with Tang Yun, at least not to put him in a difficult position in school. Lin Yi could only smile bitterly, not bothering to explain. He knew that Jifeng wouldn't believe him even if he did. Most of the other students were back in class by the time Lin Yi got back. Pin Liang was talking to Meng Yao about something, but Meng Yao didn't want to talk to him. Pin Liang wasn't discouraged, however. As far as he was concerned, he didn't have any competitors in school yet. He was the only one who was good enough for Meng Yao, so he wasn't worried at all. Lin Yi didn't bother with him either. Harassment like this wouldn't do anything to Meng Yao, so Lin Yi didn't bother with him. "Boss, what's up with Mr. Wang? Is it because of the fight the other day?" Kong Xiaobo was a little worried. After all, he was involved in the fight. No, it's about my transfer." Lin Yi didn't mention Huijun's situation to Kong Xiaobo. Lin Yi couldn't tell him everything. "Oh, that's good." Kong Xiaobo nodded. "Right, boss, when I was coming back, I saw that Tang Yin's curtains and windows were open." Tang Yin's eyes were red like she just cried. "Do you think Heartwarming went to harass her again?" "This. How would I know?" Lin Yi sweated. Kong Xiaobo's observation skills were quite strong. At lunchtime, Lin Yi planned to go to the cafeteria, but Kong Xiaobo dragged him out for barbecue. "I didn't have enough last Friday. I've been craving for 2 days." Mrs. Tang's barbecue could only be described as ordinary. It wasn't delicious, and it didn't have any special recipes. But how much more could you ask for from a street stall? Tang Yin didn't come to help today. The lunch break was actually quite stressful. Many students needed to take the opportunity to take a nap, otherwise they wouldn't be able to continue doing their homework in the afternoon. Tang Yin was distracted by Lin Yi today. She planned to take a break at noon to calm down, otherwise she wouldn't be able to focus on her studies. The barbecue stall wasn't very popular at lunchtime, and there wasn't anything special about it. The school had a cafeteria, and the number of students eating there was still quite a bit. Mrs. Tang had just finished grilling 2 tofu rolls for a female student when she raised her head and saw Lin Yi and Xiaobo. A smile appeared on her face. "Lin Yi, you brought a classmate here to eat." "Yeah." Lin Yi was a bit embarrassed. It was Kong Xiaobo who wanted to eat, but it turned out that he was the one bringing a classmate. Tang Yin had just said that he was using the opportunity to please her mother. "Auntie, how's business?" "It's a Monday." Mrs. Tang shook her head. "There aren't many people today. We just opened not too long ago. Come, sit. What do you want to eat?" "I'll prepare it. 20 mutton skewers, 2 lamb chops, 2 chicken necks, 2 tofu rolls, 2 bottles of beer." The same as the last 2 days, Kong Xiaobo was the type of person who didn't like to change the way he ate. "Let's skip the beer, we still have class in the afternoon." Lin Yi had Wang Jifeng as his backing, but since he decided to enjoy his student days, Lin Yi didn't want to be too special. Lin Yi could drink like water, but Kong Xiaobo couldn't. "Ha! I'll skip it then." Kong Xiaobo scratched his head. He wouldn't dare drink without Lin Yi's encouragement. Mrs. Tang was a bit surprised. Wasn't Lin Yi one of the big four? He taught Zhou Ruoming a harsh lesson on Friday, and it wasn't fake. Why was he so hesitant to drink a bottle of beer? Zhou Ruoming and the others wouldn't care about that, right? They could drink whenever they wanted. But thinking about it, Mrs. Tang realized that Lin Yi didn't have the bad habits of those bullies. He was respectful even when he disagreed with her. It seemed that rich families had good upbringing as well, after all. Not all of them were like Zhou Ruoming, arrogant and overbearing. Mrs. Tang had a good impression of Lin Yi the last few times she saw him. Soon, the barbecue was served. They were the only one at the table, so they didn't need to wait. As Kong Xiaobo dug in, Lin Yi picked up a chicken neck skewer and took 2 bites. Then he said to the bored Mrs. Tang, "Auntie, you can actually make the chicken neck New Orleans flavored. That would make it a specialty and your business would be better." "That's true, but I don't know how to do it." Mrs. Tang smiled bitterly. "It's just a small stall, what's so special about it?" "That's not necessarily true. A lot of stores start small." Lin Yi said, "Actually, you don't need a recipe. You can buy the marinade online. Emichim. If you don't know how to go online, you can ask Tang Yun to buy it for you." When Lin Yi was living with that greedy old man in the mountains, he often bought things for him online. "Oh. Really? Wouldn't it be expensive?" Mrs. Tang didn't know much about this, but she was a bit tempted by Lin Yi's words. Who didn't want to have a better business? It wouldn't be expensive, but it would definitely increase the cost. Lin Yi said, "But if you don't think it's troublesome, you can make it yourself. I've studied the recipe, and I'll write it out tonight. I'll bring it to you tomorrow. It's just some sugar, chili, and other common seasonings. You can buy it at the wholesale market." "That's great. Thank you in advance. I'll make it myself. It's a small business, and I don't make much money." Mrs. Tang was a bit excited. She didn't expect Lin Yi to have studied the recipe. "It's nothing, it's just a small matter." Lin Yi shook his head. "Then I'll ask Yin to get it for you tomorrow. I'll treat you when I make it." Mrs. Tang's impression of Lin Yi was even better now. The more she looked at him, the more she felt that Lin Yi was a good kid. Although he came from a good family, he was never arrogant or despotic. He was polite to people. But she had never seen Lin Yi's arrogance before. When Lin Yi got cocky, he could poke a hole in the sky. Chapter 129. "Kick you if you get in the way, boss. You're saving the country in a roundabout way." "Heh heh, it looks like Tang Yun's mom has a good impression of you," Kong Xiaobo said as he looked at Lin Yi. "Heh heh, changing the recipe will bring you closer to Tang Yun's mom. I see you eating barbecue all day, and I don't think it's very tasty. You can eat it yourself if you change it up," Lin Yi said as he slapped Kong Xiaobo's head. "What are you thinking?" "Heh heh, nothing, nothing." Kong Xiaobo shook his head. "You can eat it yourself if you change it up." Lin Yi shook his head with a smile, not replying. From Kong Xiaobo's point of view, he was pursuing Tang Yun, wasn't he? But Lin Yi didn't explain. He'd already made such a bold statement in front of Tang Yun today, and it wouldn't be right to explain himself. It was lunch break, and the third years were quiet. It wasn't as noisy as the first and second years. Lin Yi and Kong Xiaobo stood at the window at the end of the hallway. The March sun was bright but not hot, and it felt warm when it touched their bodies. The trajectory of his life had changed ever since the old man had given him that strange mission. His original self belonged to a tense and dangerous world, but now it was peaceful and warm. "Boss, it's Zhou Ruoming with Pinliang." Kong Xiaobo said as he pointed at the basketball hoop. Lin Yi looked over and saw Zhou Ruoming and Pin Liang talking about something. Both of them were standing sideways, and Lin Yi couldn't see what they were saying. He didn't have X-ray vision or anything like that, and he wouldn't be able to see what they were talking about. What does Zhou Ruoming's family do? Because of Tang Yun, Lin Yi knew that it was inevitable that he would clash with Zhou Ruoming in the future. Friday was just the beginning. Zhou Ruoming. His father is a real estate developer. He used to be a contractor. I heard that he is very black-hearted and often owes his workers their wages. Kong Xiaobo said. However, Zhou Ruoming's brother, Zhou Ruoguang, is a gangster leader in the northern district. As long as the workers are harassed, Zhou Ruoguang will bring his men to beat them up. After beating them up, the workers don't dare to come again. Oh. You seem to know quite a lot about this. Lin Yi said, curious. Zhou Ruoming wasn't in his class, but Xiaobo knew. Zhou Ruoming always brags about these things. This is also the reason why he is popular in school. Kong Xiaobo explained, most people in school know about his glorious history. This guy isn't afraid that someone will mess with his family. Lin Yi curled his lips. Gangsters. Huaijuan will teach his brother a lesson someday and he'll behave. As they spoke, they saw Zhou Ruoming and Pin Liang separate. Zhou Ruoming walked out of the school while Pin Liang walked towards the building. In fact, Zhou Ruoming only wanted to confirm Lin Yi's background with Pin Liang. Zhou Ruoming couldn't just let it go like that after what happened on Friday. If he didn't get his revenge, he wouldn't be able to stay in school anymore. He wanted to talk to his brother, Zhou Ruoguang, and see what he should do. Lin Yi and Xiaobo returned to the classroom to find Meng Yao and Yushu watching their MP4S as usual. Pin Liang, on the other hand, had moved a chair to sit beside Meng Yao, a silly grin on his face. Who knew if he'd be able to understand the animations on the MP4S? Yushu pointed at Pin Liang when she saw Lin Yi. Lin Yi realized that he and Yushu were getting more and more in sync. If she weren't Meng Yao's best friend, Lin Yi wouldn't mind flirting with her a little. It'd be a worthwhile trip for him. Yushu thought that Pin Liang was too annoying, and she couldn't chase him away no matter how hard she tried. Since Lin Yi came in, Yushu used Lin Yi's hand to chase Pin Liang away. Lin Yi smiled and nodded, walking quickly to Pin Liang. Pin Liang seemed to have sensed that Lin Yi didn't come with good intentions, but he sat there, not thinking about what reason Lin Yi had to deal with him. Pin Liang didn't think that he'd offended Lin Yi in the past few days. Lin Yi didn't care what Pin Liang thought. He walked over and kicked the leg of the chair Pin Liang was sitting on, flipping it over and sending Pin Liang sprawling on the ground. Don't block the way. Lin Yi didn't even look at Pin Liang as he stepped over him. Silence. Deathly silence. Although the classroom was originally very quiet during the lunch break, there were still people whispering. But at this moment, everyone raised their heads and looked at the scene in front of them in astonishment. Before Lin Yi transferred, Pin Liang was the bully in the class, but everything changed after Lin Yi came. The scene in school made everyone respect Lin Yi, and what happened today made them feel that Lin Yi was a spoiled brat. Just because he was in the way, and that wasn't even a reason, he sent Pin Liang sprawling on the ground. Who in the class, or even the school, would have the guts to do that? Even Zhou Ruoming, one of the big four, wouldn't be this arrogant, right? Lin Yi. Pin Liang's eyes flashed with hatred. He didn't want to give up, he wanted to jump up and fight Lin Yi. But he didn't dare. Pin Liang clenched his fists tightly, his heart filled with humiliation and helplessness. Lin Yi, just you wait, Zhou Ruoming will take care of you. You can be arrogant for a few days first. Pin Liang quietly got up from the ground, put his chair back on his seat, and sat back down. Meng Yao looked at Lin Yi's back in shock. This guy was a natural-born violent maniac. That kick was fierce, but it was stylish. Men like this gave her a sense of security. Yao Yao, did you notice that Shield Bro is really handsome? Yushu gave a thumbs up, admiring Meng Yao. Shu, are you charmed by him? Meng Yao saw Yushu's infatuated expression and felt a little uncomfortable. Hee, a little, but don't worry, Yao Yao, I won't fight with you. Yushu giggled, your choice is my choice, you. Meng Yao didn't know whether to laugh or cry as she knocked Yushu's head. She didn't know what Yushu was thinking. Why was she still so passionate about the past? Was it because of Lin Yi, or was it because of her? Meng Yao didn't know, it was just a weird feeling. Was it you who made Lin Yi do that? Meng Yao whispered. Ah. You saw it. Yushu blinked, I didn't do it for your own good. It's so annoying to see him laughing like an idiot. You beat him, but Shu, you need to watch your image. If Lin Yi keeps doing this, he'll probably be expelled in a few days. Do you think he has a strong background like everyone else? Meng Yao smiled bitterly. Chapter 130. Chapter 130, Kong Xiaobo's family. As the saying goes, bad news travels 1,000 miles. Even in the neighboring Class 9, Lin Yi's amazing feats were spreading like wildfire. Tang Yin wanted to take a nap at noon, but she couldn't. Her mind was filled with Lin Yi's despicable smile. She rubbed her sore temples and the corners of her eyes, which were red from crying. She lifted her head, wanting to read a book when she heard someone talking about Lin Yi's name. Tang Yin's heart tightened. She didn't know why she was concerned about the name. Was it because she was afraid that people would talk about Lin Yi chasing her? Did you know? When I went to the washroom just now, I saw the new transfer student from 12th grade class 5 kick Pinliang's chair over. Pinliang fell flat on his back. The boy beamed with joy as he told his classmates about what he had seen and heard. Do you know why? Because of what? A few students who were listening to the side asked. Life in the 12th grade was simple and ordinary, so the occasional exciting news was enough to keep everyone happy for a while. That's because the transfer student said Pinliang was blocking the way. He's going to kick him next time. The boy said as if he was Lin Yi himself. Don't you think he's amazing? That transfer student's name is Lin Yi, right? He's so handsome. A girl who was a bit infatuated interrupted. Didn't you guys see him last week? He single-handedly beat up that gangster who was holding a gun. This kind of man gives me a great sense of security. Pfft, there's no way he'd like someone like you. You're so slutty, you don't even know how many people you've fucked. Another girl humphed coldly. I'm more like him, get lost. Being looked down upon, that wind *SS was immediately displeased. Why don't you take a look at your crooked appearance? You're not even as good as me. From what I see, if there's a chance, only Tang Yun is worthy of it. Tang Yun was using a book as a cover as she listened in on the conversation nearby. She couldn't help but curl her lips when she heard Lin Yi kick Pinliang's chair over. He was still a playboy after all. It hadn't even been 2 days, and now he was showing his true colors after being provoked by her. Just as he was feeling disdainful, he heard someone mention him and even said that he and Lin Yi were a good match. He couldn't help but feel a little annoyed, but he couldn't get up to refute it. This kind of thing, the more he tried to explain, the worse it would get. His annoyance toward Lin Yi grew. Lin Yi didn't know that his glorious deeds had spread. When he returned to his seat, he saw Kong Xiaobo giving him a thumbs up. Lin Yi didn't care. Study hard. Let's see what you can do if you can't get into a university. Hee, I'll start reading now. Kong Xiaobo smiled bitterly. Man, if my family was like second grandpa's family, I wouldn't have to study so hard. I could be a playboy too. Lin Yi heard Kong Xiaobo talk about his family for the first time. Your second grandpa? What kind of person is he? Is he powerful? Powerful? Kong Xiaobo's lips curled up in disdain. He's just a scumbag who took someone else's stuff to get rich. He basically doesn't have much contact with our family anymore. Oh. Lin Yi could tell that it was a family feud. You know Dr. Kong, right? Kong Xiaobo said. Dr. Kong. Lin Yi frowned. Why did it sound familiar? However, he suddenly remembered that when he was in the pharmacy a few days ago, he heard the salesperson say, the Dr. Kong who sells Jinchuang medicine. And that's him. Kong Xiaobo nodded. He is my second grandpa. Ugh, then aren't you also a rich second generation, a rich third generation? Lin Yi was a little surprised about Kong Xiaobo's family background. What rich second generation and rich third generation? Kong Xiaobo smiled bitterly. My grandpa is my grandpa, and my second grandpa is my second grandpa. Now it's two families. My family is very poor, working class, I guess. Family feud? Asked Lin Yi. You could say that. The recipe for Jinchuang medicine belonged to both my grandpa and my second grandpa. My second grandpa wanted to use the recipe to build a factory, but my grandpa didn't agree. That's how the conflict started. Kong Xiaobo explained. My second grandpa seems to have stolen the recipe and built his own factory. The two families fell out after that, and now, your grandpa sure is stubborn. You can't blame your second grandpa for being greedy if he doesn't want to make money with something this good. Lin Yi nodded. If it were me, I'd probably choose to make money too. However, this incident reminded Lin Yi of something. The recipe was worth a lot of money. His medicine and Huaijuan's painkillers could all be produced and sold. The profits would be huge. And this was something that needed to be researched. He wanted to see if he could find someone to work with and earn some money. It wasn't right to keep using Mingyao's family's money. It was like living off a woman. That's what I was thinking, actually. Kong Xiaobo stuck his tongue out. My second grandpa stole the recipe, and I asked my grandpa if he knew what ingredients were in the recipe. He said he'd forgotten about it after looking at it. Man, there's nothing I can do about it. I'll have to work hard myself. You're pretty open-minded. Lin Yi looked at Kong Xiaobo in a higher light now. So what if I don't? Looking for trouble? What's wrong with you? Kong Xiaobo said helplessly. All I can do is sigh sometimes. Alright, boss, I'm going to go read. Dr. Kong. Recipe, Lin Yi frowned. There had to be more to this than meets the eye, but Kong Xiaobo didn't say anything about it. Maybe he didn't know much. But it wasn't as simple as it seemed. Ling Shan was going crazy. The robbers were hiding really deep, and they were in a mountainous area. It was a lot of inconvenience for the search. The business car with the license plate number 74110 was found, but the license plate had been broken. From the characteristics, it could be determined that this car was the robber's car, but it was useless. Ling Shan had no choice but to call Huaijuan's number. Captain Yang. Ling Shan was a little embarrassed to speak. Song, it's about the robbers, right? Huaijuan guessed that it was about the case. Yeah. I don't have any leads, Captain Yang. Ling Shan said awkwardly. Song, I'm not that good at solving cases, actually. I'm just careful, that's all. This is different from a normal bank robbery, it involves Pingzhan and Mengyao, so the kidnapping is their main goal, robbery is secondary. Huijuan said. These people are organized, and I'm afraid rushing them won't work, especially with how tight the situation is right now. Their superiors will tell them to hide as well. Ling Shan wasn't expecting Huijuan to be helpless. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.